All right, welcome everybody to a brand new episode, week 1 of Talkin Ball live with Pat Leonard. Hope you like the new logo. Please go to Adoree Jackson Designs. You can see on my Instagram accounts everywhere. You can follow me on social media, on my YouTube channel now. The new banner, the Talkin Ball live with Pat Leonard logo. Adoree does great designs, fantastic designs. Go check out his work. I'll give you his handle one more time. On X, you can find him at Adoree Bustaman, AdibusTaman. Does exclusive art design, studio work, knowledge and skills for art meet passion for art, specializes in book cover design as well as web design. Go to AdeeBustamanDesign.com. Check him out. Thank you so much for helping us rebrand this growing community, this fantastic community that, by the way, everybody, we are now over 3,000 subscribers on YouTube. I want to thank everybody who listens, who follows, who watches, who participates. Thank you so much to everybody who makes this channel and makes this show and makes these live chats what they are. I can sit up here and talk until I'm blue in the face, but the bottom line is what makes this go is your passion, your dedication, the fact that you are here on Mondays, Thursdays, 9 p.m. to check out what's the latest goings on with your Giants, with the NFL, and with the sport that we all love and can't get enough of. The fall is here. Football is here. My Irish are 1-0. We're excited. I intend to rub that in Adoree Jackson's face, although his USC Trojans also pulled one out. So those rivals starting 1-0. I look forward to trash talking Adoree between the Irish and the Trojans in the Giants locker room coming up as they prepare for the Minnesota Vikings. But this is the NFL predictions, the NFL preseason episode, the NFL episode where I tell you who's going to win the Super Bowl, tell you who's going to win every division, how deep teams are going to go into the playoffs. And I will ultimately conclude by telling you my final Giants prediction record for the 2024 NFL season. I want to start out by telling you who I think is going to win each division, give you a quick rundown on why, and then we'll build up to our final answers, which is who's going to be hoisting that Lombardi trophy and how are the Giants going to do? How are they going to fare in the third season of Joe Schoen, Brian Daboll? We will also get to your questions, obviously, of course, as always. Again, I want to thank Authentic for a tremendous Creator Series premiere episode that we did on our last Talkin Ball Live. If you missed that, go check that out when we're done here with this brand new episode here at 9 p.m. Eastern on September 2nd, Monday. But I'll give you a quick rundown. AFC East, I'm a sucker. I did it last year. I'm going to do it again. I think the Jets win the AFC East. The Patriots, I think, might end up having the number 1 overall pick. I don't buy Tua Tagovailoa, even though the Dolphins are an exciting team. And the Buffalo Bills, I think, have been primed for regression for several years now. They ended up pulling out a win streak at the end of last season to make it interesting. But I do believe that when all is said and done, a healthy Aaron Rodgers leads the Jets to a division title. Now, in the AFC North, I like the Cincinnati Bengals to bounce back again with a healthy quarterback, QB1, Joe Burrow. Jamar Chase, is that contract going to get done? What's that situation going to look like? You know, that's something to watch. It's something to keep an eye on. We'll get into that a little bit later as we get deeper into our playoff talk. But I do like the Bengals to take the AFC North there. The Browns, obviously, with a strong defense. The Pittsburgh Steelers. It's hard to believe in the quarterback situation, even though that is a team that, of course, gives its opponents fits whenever they play. And then, listen, the Baltimore Ravens, you can't discount them. You can't count them out. Lamar Jackson with Derrick Henry. And really, they were practically the wire-to-wire best team in the NFL last season. So it's hard to just sit here and pick somebody over the Ravens based on what they put on film there. But I like Cincinnati. I think the defense under Lou Anarumo bounces back. They had some personnel weaknesses last year after losing some guys in free agency, including Jesse Bates at safety. I do believe the Bengals round back into form and they take the AFC North. In the AFC South, I like the darling Houston Texans to continue pushing forward. They take that division, even though the Indianapolis Colts and the Jacksonville Jaguars both have better seasons. Anthony Richardson being healthy in Indianapolis, and obviously a really good coach and play caller there in Shane Steichen. So I do think that the Colts will be better. I like Doug Peterson's Jaguars to put a better foot forward than they did. Ultimately, however, I think that even though the Tennessee Titans have tried their best to load up, I don't consider them a true threat. I think Houston ends up taking that division. You move on to the AFC West. Who are we kidding? Kansas City Chiefs. Maybe the Denver Broncos make a push with a strong season from Bo Nix to end up finishing second in that division. But it's hard for me not to give that group of four there out in the West to the two-time defending Super Bowl champions. The Chargers, of course, I do think will be a better team. They have a favorable schedule as well. The Herbert foot injury in the preseason, even though he's healthy now, that still scared me. And I do think that their roster is a little bit ways away, particularly at the skill positions, for them to do too much damage, even though Harbaugh will, of course, improve them with his coaching. And then the Raiders, that's going to be tough sledding without a true starting number one quarterback. That's going to be very difficult for them. So the Chiefs take that division. In the NFC East, I'm giving to the Dallas Cowboys. You could look at any team in the NFC East and you could poke holes in it and say why it might all collapse, right? The Philadelphia Eagles looked like the worst team in football for 6 or 7 weeks at the end of last season. Dallas looking like they're putting no faith in their current regime by how Jerry Jones has handled things. Of course, they did get CeeDee Lamb signed, though, and Dak Prescott returning from an MVP contending season, one of the top offenses in the NFL. And really, it's just true that some teams like the Dallas Cowboys in this instance, they're just more talented than a lot of their opponents. And so even though Saquon and the Eagles think are going to have a talented team as well, and have better coaching with their new coordinators, I do think Dallas is the more talented team, the better offensive team that gets it done. So they're the NFC East. I like the Packers to win the NFC North. Of course, the Detroit Lions, a lot of people's favorite teams. Chicago should be a little bit better, exciting with Caleb Williams now in there as the number one overall pick. Minnesota should probably have a difficult season. Sam Darnold being the only QB there. J.J. McCarthy out for the season. A tough injury there for them. Green Bay and Detroit, I think it's down to them to take that division. I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers. And then in the NFC South, I like the New Orleans Saints. This is a hard one for me, the hardest pick for me. I guess Tampa Bay would be the safest pick to make. They still have some talent on that team. I know Atlanta looks like a team that may make a step, take a jump with Kirk Cousins. I'm just not going to believe it until I see it with the Falcons. Not that I have a tremendous confidence in the Saints either. Carolina, of course, in for a tough season, probably similar to what New England is going to go through. So give me the Saints, but not really confident about it. And then in the NFC West, San Francisco 49ers. I like the Rams too. I think all these teams will be competitive, including the Seahawks under first-year head coach McDonald, and also, the Cardinals getting a little bit better, healthy Kyler Murray, a roster under Jonathan Gannon that should take a little bit of a step. But I like the Niners there. Those teams make the playoffs. I got the AFC, other three playoff teams, Ravens, Chargers, Colts. And in the NFC, I like the Lions, Rams, and Eagles to crack the postseason. My divisional picks, Texans, Ravens, Bengals, Chiefs in the AFC. And in the NFC, I like the Niners, Lions, Packers, and Rams. And then the championship games, I like the Houston Texans versus the Cincinnati Bengals and the San Francisco 49ers against the Green Bay Packers. Now, this is a tough one for me because, to be honest, and I've been on shows before where I've picked the Cincinnati Bengals to win the Super Bowl this year. I have to say this Jamar Chase situation makes me a little bit nervous. The Burrow elbow or wrist injury, I should say, makes me a little bit nervous. Definitely like the diagnosis coming out of that about how maybe injuries could recur with a player like that, with an injury and a surgery like that. I do think that the Bengals, sometimes we overthink things, and maybe I'm doing that with what my Super Bowl pick ultimately is going to be. But I do think the Bengals, a lot of times, if you feel like a team is a top 5 team one year and you pick them to be in the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl, and they have that kind of caliber team, And like the Cincinnati Bengals, they were in the Super Bowl only a few years ago, and they were right there in Los Angeles, a play or two away from lifting the Lombardi Trophy themselves. Sometimes it's easy to overthink things when a team like that, they have a couple injuries to key players, including their starting quarterback. They don't crack it. They don't make the playoffs. They don't go on that run. It's easy to start to write those teams off, move on, and start embracing the darlings when really you were staring, just like you were last season, at one of the more talented teams all along. And so with the Cincinnati Bengals, I feel like this is a team that's going to round into form, that's going to be high-powered again. We also know, this is a very important thing for me, this is a team that can beat the Chiefs. They can beat the Chiefs, Kansas City. They can beat the Chiefs in the playoffs. This is a team that can do that. This is a quarterback that can do that. Now, that's part of the reason why I've considered strongly taking them in the Super Bowl. It's another part of the reason why I did pick them to get to the AFC Championship game. And I would say this, I think the safest pick, I was walking with Deebo Samuel and other Niners out of the locker room after the Super Bowl in Las Vegas last year. That's a team that is tired of not winning, that's tired of being there and not getting it done, that believes they should, that believes they could, that believes they already had it within their grasps, right? So I think that should be the pick. And I think ultimately, if you're putting money down in Vegas, that's a good pick. But, the Ayuk was making me nervous. That situation, the Trent Williams situation has been making me nervous. They are still, though, like the Cowboys, supremely talented. Now, that said, I'm going with Texans-Packers in the Super Bowl. CJ Stroud and Jordan Love going head-to-head in the Super Bowl in New Orleans. Two up-and-coming rising teams, two young teams, two pretty young rosters, but both who have supplemented what they've been able to do on their rosters, both who have head coaches who have really strong records, regular season records, and ability they've shown to manage games, to craft smart game plans, to develop quarterbacks as far as these organizations go, and also to draft well at some key positions. Xavier McKinney, our former Giant captain over there in Green Bay. But I was sitting there in Houston watching the Giants take on the Texans. And this isn't just based on me sitting there watching that game. But when I watched the Houston Texans and I looked at them on the field, I looked at their roster, I watch how they operate. I see Danielle Hunter added on defense. I see Stephon Diggs added to a wide receiver core that already has Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz, and a really, really good pass blocking offensive line led by Laramie Tunsil. CJ Stroud arguably could be, like last year, he start to sniff maybe at the end, the MVP conversation. He wasn't going to get there. It wasn't like he was going to be a front runner. But if he had played as he had played in the second half of the year for the full seasons, for the full rookie season, he would have been in that conversation. I think he ends up in that conversation. I picked the Houston Texans to lift the Lombardi Trophy and win the Super Bowl in New Orleans. And CJ Stroud, the second-year quarterback out of Ohio State, to win the Most Valuable Player Award for the NFL. Now, going to tell you about our sponsors and get right to the questions. I already see that Tuto has started us off strong with a super chat. Thank you so much, Tuto. He says, much love and respect to PL, fam and crew, and all diehard Giants fans across the pond. Greetings from our entire rugby club in Italy. Forza Gigante. I love it, Tuto. Thank you so much for bringing the vibes, always bringing the love and bringing the support here on Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard. Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard is brought to you by the Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, a natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants and heart-healthy compounds. You can easily pour this natural liquid supplement into any of your favorite drinks. I put mine in my coffee every morning and immediately feel the difference. I personally have felt a post-workout-like energy boost with Boom. Chaga also has the ability to lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and improve immune and heart health with its beta-glucans and antioxidants. Now, this is important. Go to boomchaga.com today to place your first order. Use the discount code TalkinBall25 or access it through the QR code on your screen right now. You can see it right below me there in the corner. And you will get 25% off your first subscribe and save order. Right now, that means a month's supply costs you only $30. Start feeling the difference today at boomchaga.com. So that's boomchaga.com. use the Talkin Ball 25 code or the QR code right here. Go to subscribe and save. You get that huge discount. And then you don't have to stay subscribed. You can cancel it out, no penalties, just to try the product. It's a month's supply, I believe, that you're purchasing there. And I trust me, you will love the product. And I think you'll stay subscribed if you like it. By the way, for those who arrived late, we did not do the trivia yet. So we did not do the trivia that if you get it correct first, you win a free bottle of Estate 98 coffee. And I will be honest, the first 3 winners of our trivia, they were Dave, Bill, and the Beard. And I sent them out their free bottles of Estate 98 a few days ago. And with it, I also included a free sample of Boom Chaga. So a lot riding on this next question coming up after my next 2 ad reads. So hang tight. Giants trivia coming up. We are also brought to you here by Estate 98 Coffee. I'm actually drinking it right now because I have to admit, sometimes I step on these 9 p.m. Eastern live chats and I'm a little tired. Sometimes I need a jolt. Tonight I'm drinking my Estate 98. So we're brought to you by Estate 98 Coffee. It's an all-natural specialty coffee with no sugar that is convenient for on-the-go professionals, parents, whoever. If you want to make coffee quickly and you like good taste, Estate 98 is for you. It takes me less than 10 seconds to make a delicious Estate 98 iced coffee and only a minute more to make a hot coffee or latte from this all-natural concentrate. Go to estate98.com/Talkin Ball to get a special buy one, get one free deal. Also brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the game. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet Online, the game starts here. And where I'm going to start now, Tuto, like I said, thank you so much for that super chat, getting us going. Guys, you can purchase a super chat or a super sticker to elevate your question or comment to the top of the chat. That means I will address it immediately. It'll be next in the queue. It'll jump everybody's question and comment. If you don't want to purchase a super chat or super sticker, totally fine. Just pop your question into the queue. I'll get to it when I can. All I ask is that you hit the like button while you are here. Those like buttons while we are live tells YouTube that everyone who's here is loving what they're seeing. And it tells the algorithm, push this more, push it to more NFL fans, push it to more Giants fans, because that tells people what we're doing. And what we found is the more people who find us, follow us. Now, like I said, over 3,000 subscribers for the YouTube channel at PL on NFL on YouTube. Thank you all so much. Like I said, all right, here's your Giants trivia question. Like I said, type your answer into the queue. And the first person to answer this question correctly, this Giants piece of trivia correctly, I will mail you a free bottle of Estate 98 coffee and a small sample of Boom Chaga for you to try. After you get it, you will DM me your address on Instagram, and I will mail it out to you when I can in the coming days. Here's your question. So Adoree Jackson just re-signed with the Giants. This is a signing that, to be honest, it's a little discouraging that after all of this offseason where clearly they were not intending to bring this player back, they're still doing so out of a little bit of desperation to fix a secondary that they don't have full trust in, potentially could return punts as well, but still discouraging that it's the kind of acquisition, the kind of signing, the kind of late signing of a player that, you know, they didn't have a high opinion of even his football in the previous year, that makes you concerned about the coming season. So it's the kind of acquisition by the Giants that, even though they did need an upgrade at corner, even though he may provide a slight upgrade at corner for them, it does make you concerned about the team's own outlook of where things are going and what might be coming. Now, this reminded me a little bit of Dave Gettleman in 2021. In late August, the guy who was supposed to fix their offensive line still had to go out and trade assets for 2 starting offensive linemen on his 2021 roster. Who were those 2 offensive linemen that Dave Gettleman traded for at the start of the 2021 NFL season when he was supposedly stockpiling his roster with hog mollies for years? But it turned out he was still desperate enough to deal draft picks and BJ Hill for 2 starting offensive linemen. Giants Chronicles. Gabe checks in with the winning answer first. Chronicles nails it. Looked like a lot of people were hesitating. A lot of people maybe trying to look it up, which I don't blame you for. You're allowed to do that. But Gabe, you got it. Looks like Mark checked in as well, right behind Gabe. Chronicles, you are absolutely right. That's it. Don't play with me, Pat, he says. Well done, Gabe. Congratulations. You have won a free bottle of Boom Chaga, a free bottle of Estate 98 coffee, and a packet free sample of Boom Chaga to try. So, Gabe, you're going to DM me your, damn, that was fast, right, Mets? So, Gabe, you're going to DM me your address on Instagram after the chat, and I will mail you out a free sample of Estate 98 coffee. I believe it's about 16 days worth of coffee in this bottle of Estate 98. I think you'll love it. And then also a small sample of Boom Chaga. Well done there, Gabe. Not sure if you guys agree with me or not, but that is what the Adoree Jackson signing reminded me of. The Billy Price, Ben Bredesen acquisitions by Dave Gettleman, that even if they help the team and improve those positions in the short term, then it still tells you, whoa, the GM thinks that they don't have 2 starting offensive linemen. Or in this case, whoa, the GM and the Giants really don't have faith that they have their starting outside corner 2 on their roster. So they have to re-sign Adoree Jackson. So that's where we're at. But that said, let's get to the queue. Let's get to the questions. Gabe, thanks for participating. And everybody, thanks for being here on another episode of Talkin Ball Live. As I take a sip of Estate 98 and we roll into G-Men's first comment. G-Men says, what's going on, Pat? We did it. We signed a veteran corner, have been pounding on the table for weeks that we need a proven, experienced CB2 that can step in and play above average football and provide an upgrade over Nick McLeod and Cordell Flott. Happy the Giants repaired their relationship with Adoree and happy he wanted to be back. Desperate situations like this, especially signing a veteran before the season, is not ideal. Adoree will have to get back in football shape, but knowing Bowen from Tennessee definitely helps. Yeah, I think there's a couple ways to look at it, G-Men. For sure, you don't want your team to sit on its hands, right? You don't want the Giants, if they don't feel comfortable with their current situation, you want them to act. They need to act, right? That said, you talk to sources around the league, and there were some people in the NFL who, as much as the Giants secondary looked like a concern, if you're a team that's building for the future, like the Giants say they are, and still in that build process, playing young players and forcing young players into more significant reps at certain situations, that's one way to develop players, to grow players, to, you don't want to take your medicine necessarily, but let's look at like the Giants roster, for example, Cordell Flott, Trey Hawkins, specifically guys we're talking about on the outside here, draft picks of Joe Shane's, draft picks and young players that these Giants are hoping that can continue to grow and to develop. And, there is a thought that if Joe Shane's here for the long haul, if he has into, through the 2025 season, that playing those young guys more as they were starting to show at the start of training camp, as they were starting to show, they really seems like their preference was to start and is to start Cordell Flott on the outside. There are some opinions out there that would actually be the right long-term way for the Giants to go. So it's interesting and also discouraging at the same time that, yes, maybe they're making a slight short-term improvement, but it also, from a big picture contextual standpoint, it makes you concerned about, well, wait, or actually it's not just concern. To me, it's reinforcing what the situation is. Like, they do need results now, right? Like, if they could take their medicine and let young guys grow, they wouldn't have to do something like this, right? I think it's reinforcement of the fact that pressure is on and they need some solutions and some real answers to the problems that they saw in the preseason and most recently in the joint practices against the Jets when Aaron Rodgers was bombs away with Garrett Wilson, right? Now, if Adoree upgrades your secondary, then that could go a long way to reinforcing the Giants, of course, to being a much better defense than what they are projected to be through the month of August. But I agree with you, G-Man. It's a combination of encouraging and also concerning based on looking at it from a short-term and long-term perspective, as well as we've talked about before, what is Adoree really going to be? And are the Giants, do they feel like he can give them way better football than last season? Or is this a desperate signing that they don't know what they're going to get, but they're hoping to get the early Giants version of Adoree rather than the other one? Chronicles says, Pat, it's been 4 days since Adoree signed. How can not one reporter tell us the terms of the deal? Can you provide any light on this? I'm going to try to have that by the end of the chat, Gabe. If not, it'll probably come out tomorrow. What happens is a lot of times this contract information does not get logged and disseminated even on internal channels right away. So just because the Giants draw the contract up and it's, it's viable with the NFL Players Association and the player signs it, doesn't mean yet that it's something that is submitted and filed and logged and cataloged and kind of disseminated, whether it's between sources, whether it's information that's available to people on teams, or even, let's say even from a player perspective, players know broad strokes. They don't know the details. And then, Gabe, to be honest, there's the other side of it would be the agent side. So usually if a contract is a great contract, then the agent's going to get out the terms right away, right? The agent is going to find out a way to get those terms out there because it's going to make the agent look good. It's going to make the player look good. So usually in a situation like this, when you're waiting and waiting and waiting and you're not hearing about the terms of the deal, it's probably because it's not an amazing contract, right? Like in this scenario, for example, 1 year contract. We don't know exactly the terms of it yet, but probably incentive laden based on, playing time. It could be based on achievements of both his and the team, similar to like Darius Slayton, obviously, when they reworked his contract, that was something that went on there. So, that's the answer. So I hope that clarifies it for you. It will be clarified in the coming days, though. Promise you, like it'll eventually get out. But I think in this case, it's probably has to do with right now. It would come from the agent, if anybody. And this is a guy who's made a lot of money over his career. And, I would imagine that the contract he signed was relatively humble financially for him. So it's not being projected from the rooftops. How much better does Adoree make this secondary? He has more pedigree and ability than anybody else in the secondary. We obviously saw last season him not playing at a high level. Tackling and kind of engagement was an issue with Adoree Jackson there. He also did not take a visit to another team. He said he had interest around the league, some other interest, but did not visit another team. So it's not like the Giants were not competing with anybody in this situation, right? This was not a competition for his services. So all of that to say that, the Giants still feel like he upgrades them or else they wouldn't have signed him. Like for me, I do think the punt return element of it is an interesting one. If Gunnar Olszewski can't go early and the special team side of this is intriguing, but let's be honest, this is, I think, it's a signing, it's an acquisition motivated by trying to improve the defense. And it's not just the ability of the defense. It's also, the youth in that secondary as well at that corner position, right? With Banks, McLeod, Flott, Hawkins as the outside corners. Adoree Jackson gives you a more veteran presence there as well. Chronicles my opinion though. And I see that, not to jump around too much, but I see that Barb says, do you think Adoree Jackson plays Sunday? So I'm going to fold Gabe's question and Barb's question into one here. I do think he plays Sunday, Barb. I don't think they wouldn't have been this urgent about the signing and acquisition and addition of Adoree if he wasn't going to. I am questioning, though, how much he's going to be able to go. I mean, I asked him flat out if he'd be able to play a 60-snap game and start and play the full game at outside corner. And he was basically like, I don't know. We'll see. I'd probably be pretty gassed if I had to do that. So I think it'll, be targeted playing time for him early would be my guess. And, I think the design here is for him. It looks like, based on them making this urgent of an acquisition, for him to come in and start as soon as he is capable. I do think you have to be careful here if you're the Giants. I mean, obviously they're trying to make the team better, but you just had Nick McLeod and Cordell Flott toiling through an entire training camp battling for this position. And now Adoree gets signed probably above them here on the depth chart. That's a tough thing to do. That's a tough thing for players to stomach. And obviously if you earn it from how you play and you stave off that type of acquisition, then that's how, you win the job, right? You play better. That would be the answer to that. But, I think the Giants, it's just that the plan looked like one thing and now it's another. It's a hard pivot. I do think Adoree plays Sunday. And I wouldn't be surprised if he started at outside corner and played punt return. I also think, though, he'll probably have to be in a rotation there because football shape is much different from workout shape. And I really question, and even Adoree admitted and Dable admitted, they really don't know whether he'll be able, to be in the kind of football shape you need to be to play a full game right away. We will see about that. The other thing about it is he didn't even go through, this is the hard Brian Dable training camp, and Adoree didn't have to go through any of that. Michael says the 2025 QB class isn't top heavy, but pretty deep so far. Do you think, given that 10 teams drafted QBs in the past 2 drafts, the Giants will have their shot at taking a QB regardless of where they pick? Michael, I do think that's an element that could help the Giants in the top 10 next year. Given that so many teams this year drafted them high as well, especially including think about this: the New England Patriots and the Carolina Panthers, 2 teams who look like they're going to compete for the number 1 pick again. They've both drafted quarterbacks in the last 2 years, right? Now, that said, that doesn't mean the Carolina Panthers wouldn't draft one again in year 3 of Bryce Young if this year he's a disaster with a new coach and a new offense as well. Not saying that would be fair, but just to caution, Michael, you can't check Carolina off the list that they wouldn't draft another quarterback next year if Bryce Young and that offense is a disaster again, even though they just picked him. But I agree with your premise. I do think that projecting that the Giants have a top 10 pick, I think that, yes, based on how the quarterback class looks and the fact that so many teams have drafted them recently, especially, now let me caution here. Teams like the Texans, who were picking up at the top of the draft often, they're not going to be picking high anymore, right? So they're not going to be pushing up. You never know. Let's say the Dallas Cowboys don't re-sign Dak Prescott, right? Now that's a team, if they have a little bit of a slide and they're in the teens, could trade up and get a quarterback. There's a lot of teams out there that don't look like they might be in the quarterback market right now, but who could on the turn of a dime suddenly end up there. Because really, when you end up having a top 5, top 6, top 7 pick, it's because the bottom fell out on most of those situations. So, who's another team? The Tennessee Titans, right? Drafted a quarterback recently, could easily be up there to draft one as well. So you have to be careful about assuming that. The other thing is, you and I could sit here and say this quarterback looks strong, class looks strong and looks deep for 2025. But when all is said and done, just like this year, there were several first-round quarterbacks, but we all know the Giants adjudged that only 3 of them were worth a top 6 pick, right? So that was the Giants' decision was, hey, look, there's three quarterbacks in the first round taken behind us, but we think only 3 of those 6 who are going in the first round to us are worth this pick here, right? And so, could be a deep class and a strong class, but if some of those teams I just mentioned rise to the top and the bottom falls out and they're suddenly back in the quarterback market And you and I could both say there's 5, 6, 7 guys who should be drafted before the end of the middle of the second round at quarterback, but only 2 of them are really top 10 picks. Now you're back in that same mechanism and battle of, do we have to trade up? Do we win too many games? And now we're too far back from where we need to be. But obviously, Michael, it's a catch-22 there, because this is a really great question by the way, Michael, to kind of get our conversation rolling in another direction. And I think it's also like, if your bottom falls out, who's making the pick? That's the other question. Joel, great to see you. He says, super excited and happy for the Adoree Jackson signing, but I'm still concerned about our middle linebacker situation. Yeah, I am as well. I think middle linebacker is a good example of the team's situation in a lot of positions, where they have a player and an NFL player, and maybe one guy that you can get excited about. Obviously, in this situation, Bobby Okereke, but then the depth is lacking. There's injury issues behind the starter, whatever the case may be. I think that your concern is justified. Like, if Micah McFadden can't play in this game and Darius Muasau has to go as the late round rookie pick out of UCLA, that's tough. But then again, I was looking into the Vikings a little bit today, and, there's places to attack their defense. Their inside linebacker position is one of them. The Giants at least have some top end players at some key positions on their defense. The Vikings do have some names back there, Harrison Smith being the most recognizable and revered one. Also Stephon Gilmore at corner. But it's interesting, this week 1 matchup is 2 matchups of teams who, they have low expectations, but also intrigue and also, people watching, how is the coach going to shape the roster? Both offensive coaches, what are they going to get out of the quarterback? What they get out of that QB could define an explosive offense or a sputtering offense, and define the season's results and even the week 1 results right off the bat, right out of the gate at MetLife Stadium. Both teams with low expectations from the outside, and a very interesting matchup for both of them, because a lot is going to be, you can glean a lot, I think, from this early Giants game, this first Giants game, about what they have the potential to be and not be. Of course, they have 16 games after that. Same with the Vikings. But for both of these teams, given what their projections are and given what they have some strengths, but also plenty weaknesses, and both teams are not teams that are going to compete for, in my opinion, playoff berths or, let alone into the championship games of Super Bowl. So they both have a lot riding on not losing the game, is the way I see it. Chronicles says, I dig the new look, Pat. Thank you so much, Chronicles, for saying that. Really appreciate that. Antonio, great to see you. Intel says 5-12. And that reminds me, I didn't give my Giants prediction yet, so we will get to that. Antonio says, nice rebrand, bro. Thank you so much, Antonio. Really appreciate it. A2Z Me says, greetings from Montreal, Pat. Labor Day stream. Yes, Montreal, one of my favorite North American cities, one of my favorite NHL trips. Always was great going into the Bell Center there. Goosebumps watching the Canadiens and the Rangers play. Anytime I was there, I love Montreal. Absolutely love it. Patrick says, will the Giants score more than 300 points this season? Well, I'm not a math major, so let me see. That's 17 games. Let's see. 300 divided by 17 is 17.6 points per game. You know what, Patrick? I think they might end up hovering right around that. I could see them improving to around like 18, 19 points per game is where I have them in my mind, where I envision this going. So, I guess 20 could be in the range of possibility, but I like them in that 18 to 19 range. So, 18, let's say 18 points a game for 17 weeks. That takes you to 306. So I would give them just above the 300 point watermark in answer to your question there. Intel says, well-deserved, Pat, on the 3,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for saying that, Intel. He says, ready for a therapy session this year, Pat. I know you are, Intel. Hopefully we don't need therapy. Hopefully we're talking about victories and excitement. Antonio says, do you expect Micah McFadden to play Sunday? Antonio, I don't, as we sit here and now, I do think that, listen, we're talking here on Monday. We don't have the official injury report yet. It'll come out on Wednesday. Now, my belief based on watching Micah being on the side and working is that he's not out until week 3 or 4. It doesn't look like to me, or definitely not till week 4. I guess week 3 you could be on the table, but to me, it looks like a guy who might be able to come back week 2, but it might be smart to sit him out week 1, if that makes sense. So this is me totally speculating. No one's telling me this. It's just based on what I know his injury is, that groin, seeing him with a slow ramp up here, and just projecting out, So I guess it's a long way of saying I think that there's a chance he sits out week 1, but he's not out too much longer, would be the way I see it. But we get back on the practice field Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday of this week. So if he's doing a lot right away at the start of this week in practice, that tells you there's a chance. If he's still doing very little, then I think it might arguably would be foolish to push him and rush him back in that regard. Once Deontay Johnson gets healthy, hopefully he can help them there as well. All right. Chronicles says we need Adoree on the pod. No doubt. I don't know if you guys know this, but the real reason Adoree re-signed is because he always told me he would do the podcast, Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard, and we never got him on. And so I'm pretty sure that it's negotiated into that contract. Like, there's the incentives, it's the 1-year deal, it's all that. I have pretty strong confidence that when I get into the locker room this week and I talk to Adoree about it, he will admit that the reason he signed back with the Giants is because he wanted to keep his promise of doing Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard. So, we'll see. He needs to. I agree. We got to make it happen. Jay Mazzella says Adoree signing is big, fills a hole. Michael says, what are your thoughts on Riley Leonard, the Notre Dame quarterback? Can he boost his draft stock this year? And Intel says he looks like Daniel Jones 2.0. I like Riley as a gamer. I thought there were throws that he missed the other day, like listen, he's a playmaker. He can make plays with his legs, extend plays, throw on the run. But like he had one of the backs out in the flat after breaking the tackle and kind of eluding outside the pocket, where if he hits that guy, it's an 80-yard touchdown and he underthrows him. And then he had a tight end in the back of the end zone later, didn't see him, threw it underneath incomplete. So you want to see better from him there. There were also opportunities he made as that he, delivered some good throws where his skill players didn't help him, I thought, especially in the end zone there. With Jeremiah Love, didn't turn outside, didn't kind of look for the ball. I thought that looked like a really good throw. It could have been a touchdown. But, Michael, I do think that Notre Dame's offense looks like it's for real. Their offense, it's tiresome every year watching them scratch and claw for points. It's encouraging to see that this young offensive line that Notre Dame has can move the ball on the ground like that. I thought they needed to commit to the run in that game. They finally did. It paid off. I think Leonard clearly needs to be a part of a running game and protected by one. And I do agree with Intel. I see a lot of similarities in the Daniel Jones, Riley Leonard mold as far as it was almost like when Leonard couldn't get anything going, what did they have him do? They had him running like quarterback sweeps and keepers, right? Even when, some of the interior runs with the running backs weren't working, and that can open up things in the passing game. I think the pass protection, they were concerned about that, which is why they kept running so many bubble screens. I just want to see a little bit more accuracy from Leonard. And then I think the skill position players and the receivers look pretty good. But I definitely think pushing the ball further down the field and relying on his arm a little bit, and not just his legs, needs to be the thing. But definitely a gamer, humble kid. And I enjoyed rooting for him in week 1 in that victory over Texas A&M. Solving says, what are the vibes like with the Giants team? Optimism or monotony? No monotony. I mean, there's optimism right now. I think a lot of the Giants' top players are ready to try to prove people wrong. Like Dexter Lawrence is tired of listen, Dex said a year ago that it was time to stop building and start to actually win. So, he thinks it's way overdue. Daniel Jones, of course, we know he has a chip on his shoulder. He's ready to rock. He's ready to show everybody, including his own organization, the mistakes they've made as far as evaluating him recently. And then, there's people who have Daniel Jones's back, like Darius Slayton. I think there's optimism. I think there's also a healthy amount of kind of sneering at the way that they have become like a punchline nationally. Daniel has become a punchline nationally. The Giants have become a punchline nationally. I think that's one of the more interesting things about kind of where this has gone recently is there are days where I am off, not covering the team, not writing anything, and not writing anything or reporting anything that fuels the fire. And you'll see clips on social media or you'll turn on the television and you'll just see somebody, an analyst on ESPN or wherever it is, just killing Daniel Jones and the Giants. Like it's become commonplace. It's almost like the Dak Prescott, if there's nothing else to talk about, just trash Dak Prescott. That's where it's become. And I think the Giants know that. And I think that they're, optimistically intrigued about proving people wrong. That's what I think. Intel says we know the Giants are not winning the Super Bowl. Elias says, what do you think of the upcoming quarterback class? Still early, but I think they will be fine if they're drafting a quarterback in 2025. Looks like a lot of quarterbacks in this draft. Looks like a lot of talent in this draft. But I would say, Elias, that like I said, there's always one or two prospects who pop up late during the draft cycle that you didn't have on your radar in September. And then there's also one or two of the projected class. Turns out that, they looked like one thing and then they become another as maybe they falter in their senior season or their final college season. Maybe they get hurt. Maybe something comes out during the scouting process about where they prefer to play or off-field stuff. So you always have to take it with a grain of salt this early, but it does look like there will be a lot of passers out there for the Giants to scout and to acquire if they wish in the draft early. And we know Joe Shane, Tim McDonald, the whole personnel staff was on the road already prior to the Giants week 1 game against the Vikings. They were already out there scouting top quarterbacks and prospects in college football on Labor Day weekend. Elias dropped in a super chat. He said, hey, Pat, excited for week 1. I'll be in the stadium hoping for better than 40-0. What are your personal keys to winning? For me, it will be pass rush or bust. Elias, I think you're talking about keys to winning against the Vikings on Sunday. If that is what you're referring to, I think the keys to winning are getting a lead in the game. Okay. I think that's number 1 for me, getting a lead in the game early. I do think if they are unable to dictate the terms of the game by falling behind, listen, we know that in sports in general that, team takes an early lead, team goes ahead. Obviously, it improves their chances early. But I mean, from the Giants, how they're built, right? I think that their defense, I'm curious. I still think that they might struggle against the run. And if they fall behind against Sam Darnold and the Vikings and they allow Sam to hand the ball off more to Aaron Jones rather than having a lead and forcing Sam to throw the ball out of shotgun and drop back and letting your pass rush pin their ears back, I think both of those things change the game one way or another. So that's my number 1 key to winning is get an early lead. I think also, protecting the football for Daniel Jones, I would put that there as well. And for the whole offense, but protecting the football for the Giants is a big one. And I also think managing the game on Dable's end. I think it'll be a close game either way. Like it's hard for me to imagine either of these teams running away from the other. I think they both have weaknesses. They both have strengths. They're both incomplete teams who have some playmakers, but also some guys who the other team will make plays on. And so I do think it will be close. And I think my third key would be Brian Daboll in those key moments, making the correct decisions, whether it's a 4th down, a field goal, a go for a situation, a halftime adjustment, an end of half situation, calling timeouts, challenges, all of those things that last year did not go the Giants' way in 3 close games that became losses and led to a 6-11 record. So keys to the game against the Vikings, early lead, Daniel Jones, protect the ball, whole team protect the ball, Brian Daboll, game management. Great question there, Elias. Thank you for your super chat. All right. let's get to the next comment in the queue. And thank you everybody for participating. As always, we got a long queue tonight. I'll get to all of them. Don't worry about it. Thanks for hanging in. Really appreciate it here on Talkin Ball live with Pat Leonard, week 1 edition. We are here. Let's see. Mo Plaza says, love the show. Best show. Thank you so much, Mo. Thank you for being here. Tim says, our biggest problem is keeping players on the field. We can't progress if our players are on the sidelines. And Tim, I'm glad you said that, because that leads me to my Giants prediction. And this could give us a jumping off point to talk more about where we think this season is going to go. My prediction for this Giants season is 4-13. Okay. Now I say that very seriously. Like, I'm not trying to be overly negative. I'm not trying to be unfair. I'm looking at what I see on the field and looking at the schedule, but also, and I'm bringing this up now because of Tim's comment. Tim points out something that the Giants have struggled with year in and year out, and that is keeping players healthy. Okay. The Giants this year have practiced harder than they normally practiced. Hopefully it results in the team being more prepared physically, preventing injuries, or callousing your body against injuries, as Joe Judge always used like to say. Hopefully that helps in that regard. And it has them more prepared in week 1, as Elias said, 40-0, not trying to see that in week 1, right? So the hope, the intent of Dable, of Shane, of the Giants is to have the team more prepared. But we've seen a lot of injuries already. We've seen a lot of guys go down. We've seen Brian Dable bristle about the injuries after the preseason finale, about how many guys were going down, right? The latest big one was the backup center, Austin Schlottman, going down for long term. Micah McFadden looks like he could miss week 1 at inside linebacker, right? And to me, this is not a team that can afford to lose 1 or 2 of its key players to injury and survive, right? So their quarterback situation scares me, because I think if Daniel Jones goes down, I don't think they win games with him not in the lineup. As much as people, there's plenty of critics, people who don't want Daniel Jones in the game, and think that, I know there's some fans who think that they'd be better off if one of the backups played, but I don't think they would. I think they would struggle mightily. I think it would be a huge dip in production at the quarterback position if Daniel didn't play. And that's just one example, right? This team cannot afford to lose one of its 5 or 6 or 2 of its 6, 7, or 8 key players. They do not have the depth to make up for it. Now, of course, Malik Nabers, exciting young player. Daniel Jones looks determined, looks healthy despite the knee questions we had all offseason. The offensive line pass protection looks like it could be better with more veteran NFL players on it, even though we have seen some free runners throughout the preseason here and there. They also look like they need to block better in the run game. Not something I've been impressed with so far in the early going. But yes, there's a weapon in Malik Nabers. Saquon Barkley gone. So more on Daniel Jones's arm, more on the offense. Brian Daboll calling plays. How much of a difference is that going to make? Shane Bowen, new defensive coordinator. This is one where, listen, I will take the loss if it comes to it, and this Giants defense balls out and they win games for them left and right and they're dominant. I will put up my hand and say I was dead wrong. I'll be the first one to do it. I promise you. But I do think there will be a regression here on defense. I think that there will be a much simpler game plan, much simpler system. I think that the Adoree Jackson signing is an indication of where they see it being at the moment, as far as their concern level, the ability of teams to push the ball down the field, where they are vulnerable. Their pass rush, I think, will win them some games, and I think we'll have them in other games. Like the Washington matchup. Washington, I think, the leaf could turn for Washington in this head-to-head against the Giants. They're really the only team in the division the Giants have success against fairly consistently. But their offensive line is not good. And so the Giants, even if they struggle, I think still could have a field day against Washington facing a bad offensive line, right? Like that's an example, I think, of how the Giants maybe match up well with somebody. But I do think that, a lot of this hinges on how the season goes. Do they start 1-1, 0-2, 2-0? I think it'll set the tone. I just think injuries plus lack of depth plus poor reactions to early failures from the team, from the leadership, from the coach, etc. If they lose early, I think will contribute to the wheels coming off and a 4-win season and an overturn of a regime. But, like I said, Bobby Okereke, Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, Malik Nabers, Daniel Jones, Andrew Thomas. I mean, you have some pieces here. This is not a team that should have no expectations, which is something we've talked about, right? It's not like we think they're going to compete for a postseason spot or a Super Bowl, but they have some talent on the field. They have some players. They have some key players who can be difference makers. So I don't predict 4 wins with a smile on my face. I don't predict 4 wins with any excitement. I certainly am tired of 4 and 5 and 6 win or fewer than seasons that have the team that I'm closest to irrelevant by Halloween and Thanksgiving, because it's not good for business. I'll just be totally honest. It's not good for business, but that's my honest opinion. And Tim hit on the reason why is that, I need to see a healthy team to believe it. I need to see a healthy Giants team. And if I can see a Giants team that keeps themselves healthy, then I will start to point to certain games and say, now I feel truly confident in picking them to beat this team, or I feel like they could compete against, the middle to lower upper echelon, because Dexter Lawrence can face up against this center. Brian Burns can take on this tackle, those types of things. All right. Let's get on to the next question and try to roll through the queue here. Thanks for everybody for being patient. If I did not get to your question yet, hope you're enjoying the show. We're going to continue rolling here on Talkin Ball live with Pat Leonard. By the way, shout out to the Believe Network. We are hosted on the Believe Network here. And thank you so much to Believe for all the support. And, we've continued to grow this podcast. It's also available in audio form, wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, but wherever else you listen, we are there. If you're listening on the audio version of Talkin Ball live with Pat Leonard right now, thank you for listening. We hope to see you next time on the live show on the YouTube channel. H5000 says, if the O-line is halfway competent, Kayvon Thibodeau can hold the edge and not get manhandled by the O-line, and coaching staff provides competent plan, unlike Dallas 40-0 game, they should beat Minnesota with ease. I think you hit on an interesting point there, H5000, which is, if you're any good, you beat the Vikings. That's just, if there's any chance that the Giants are good, they beat the Vikings. I don't think that's an unfair statement. And I think you hit on it, H5000. Should not be a game that gives you a hard time if you're a good team. That's what I think. All right. Kyler says, nice new logo, Pat. I dig it. Thank you, Kyler. Like I said, it is Adi Bustaman. So his name is ADIBUSTAMAN. And he runs a company, AdiBustamanDesign.com, exclusive art studio design, knowledge and skills for art and passion as well. Specializes in book cover designs, web design. Adi does it all. He is excellent. Tremendous work. I love the logo. I'm glad you do too. I hope the rebrand appeals to both the Giants fan base and also the wider audience. I love it. I think it fits what we're doing here, fits our audience, and fits our wider reaching audience that is continuing to join here as well. John says, Bo Nix is the one who got away. We will see. We will see. Just because he thrives under Sean Payton doesn't mean he would thrive under another quarterback, right? Or another quarterback coach, I mean. Barb says, did you see Darius Slay of the Eagles is pissed they are playing in Brazil? He said because of crime, they were told not to leave the hotel. Why are we sending teams to these places? Yeah, and it disrupts players' routine. Like, Barb, that's what I think too, more than anything. Slay saying that, I think large part, when players are forced out of their routines and out of their element, like everything they do is about getting ready to play and perform at their highest level. And so when that gets thrown off kilter, they get thrown off kilter. Very similar to any of us with our jobs or lives. When there's a certain way you settle into doing things and enjoying things, and then it gets disrupted and you have to adjust. Now, of course, in real life, you just have to roll with it, roll with the punches and figure it out. So that's what Slay and the Eagles and the Packers are going to have to do, is figure out something that's unfamiliar, that's strange, that's difficult, that's different. Barb, the reason is because the NFL is just continuing to grow. It's massive and it's getting bigger, pushing the international audience. There is an international audience that not only is tapped into the NFL, but the NFL continues to tap into. You see that with the Germany game that the Giants are playing in this year against the Panthers. You see that with all the London games that have happened. And also, the constant murmuring behind the scenes about, obviously for years there's been talk, hey, are the Jacksonville Jaguars eventually going to move to London, right? Is Shad Khan going to move them to London? And then these are just totally unofficial conversations, but there's also been people who wonder, is the NFL one day going to have a European division? Because if they do, that's how you have teams that play each other and don't have to travel. There's not overseas travel happening all the time. And that's a way to have a division of the NFL that's international, and have the schedule be manageable at the same time. No one from the league is telling me that. I'm just saying those are the types of conversations that when you start spitballing about, well, how the heck where would they go from here? That's kind of just what people throw out into the atmosphere. Bangkok Baseball says, Pat, is this a new look for Talkin Ball? I love it. Thank you so much. Yes, it is. This is the rebrand. Adi Bustaman design. Thank you so much. Loving the look. Loving the look. And yes, this is going to be, taking over on all my platforms. So if you guys don't know already, PL on NFL, my initials, PL on NFL. You can follow me on Threads, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at that handle. And then on X or Twitter, my handle is P Leonard NYDN for my New York Daily News coverage, NFL columnist and Giants beat writer there, of course. ZX says Tibbs, Burns, Dex, Bobby, Banks, and Nabers got to be our guys on Sundays. No doubt. The guys you pay to make the plays got to make the plays. Devin says, everyone take 2 seconds and hit the like button. Come on now. Thank you, Devin, for saying that. Yes, please right now, just press the like button under the video. If you didn't already, those likes while we are live help immensely to drive traffic, drive the algorithm, to tell people about what we are building here on Talkin Ball Live. Over 3,000 subscribers and counting, thanks to you. Jacob says, what's up, Pat? Long time no see. Grandmother recently passed. Definitely will start tuning in more. Jacob, I'm so sorry to hear that. Everybody, please wish Jacob well. Jacob, we're here for you, man. So sorry. I'm glad you're here. Glad that you're back in Talkin Ball, and glad that you're participating. Our thoughts and prayers go to your family and to your grandmother, and I'll be thinking about her. And listen, just the fact that we've connected to the point where you're sharing that with me, sharing that with us, and that we can be here to have a constructive and an entertaining conversation that helps you, and that both of us get something out of, I think is extremely valuable. And yes, sorry again about your grandmother. John Moog calls Saquon Snakequan as I was talking about the Eagles, and Barb says the Eagles are overrated. There is so much hatred between the Eagles and the Giants. It's great. What a rivalry. All right, let's see. Tommy says, health and wealth to all. Tudo, hope you and the fam are well. Stay a blessing always. Intel agrees with me. Says, I'm taking a Texans versus Packers in Super Bowl, and Texans win their first Super Bowl. And actually, Intel, when I was talking, I believe I saw you type that before I even put my prediction out there. So you and I are of like minds. Jacob wants to know if I'm doing any post-game lives. Jacob, absolutely. Thanks for mentioning that. Anybody who's new to the channel or new to the podcast, we do Talkin Ball live post-game every Giants game from the press box at the stadium. So at MetLife Stadium on Sunday, the Giants play the Vikings. When the game is over, I go into the locker room and talk to the players. I go and talk to Brian Daboll at the press conference. I come upstairs, I finish my writing for the New York Daily News, and then I jump on YouTube live on the channel, PL and NFL, with all of you. And we go live from MetLife Stadium, and I break down everything I heard and saw and observed in the locker room, on the field, sitting there in the press box, talking to these guys afterwards, their highest moments, their lowest moments. And I'll bring you straight from the horse's mouth, straight from the arena, the first look from the stadium, from somebody who was in there at the Giants, in the Giants' closest moments, in their locker room, what they were saying, what they were feeling, injury updates, analysis, breaking news. We bring it all on Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard. So that's every Giants game from the stadium's press box. You can count on me to be upstairs after I come out of the locker room, touch up my story for the Daily News, and jump on YouTube with you all. So yes, Jacob, we are doing the Talkin Ball Lives all season long. All right. Tommy likes Stroud for MVP as well. No Mets, what's going on? Always great to see you. Let's see. Tommy says, Pat, what quarterbacks do you see going under 200 yards passing this weekend? Let's take a look at the matchups. That's an interesting question. Okay. Let's see. So what quarterbacks are going under 200 yards passing in week 1? All right. I think there's a chance that would that be Gardner Minshew for the Raiders at Baltimore? I think that's a good candidate there. Let's see. I mean, Bryce Young plays the Chargers, but it's in Carolina at home. Chargers, is that going to be under 200? That, there's a chance of that one hitting as well there. Anthony Richardson at Green Bay is a possibility. I mean, he could still have a good game and be under 200 yards passing because he does a lot of damage with his legs as well. I think you definitely have to take the Patriots against the Seahawks under 200 there for Jacoby Brissett. Let's see. Browns and Jaguars, I would stay away from. Saints, Cowboys, who the heck knows? I mean, the Saints will probably be down and throwing a lot. I would stay away from that. Let's see. Baker and the Lions, probably teetering there. I know I would like Baker to throw it around the yard a little bit, even if the Detroit scores a good amount. Let's see. Cardinals, Rams, no. Steelers, Broncos. Oh, that's an interesting one. That's a game where you could have both teams' quarterbacks go under 200 yards there. Steelers, Broncos, a late game on Sunday. Jets, Titans. Oh, love Will Levis to go under 200 yards against the Jets. Let's see. Bengals, Chiefs. Wouldn't touch that one with a 10-foot pole on that. Bears, Texans. I mean, it's possible Caleb could go under 200 on the road against a really good defense and team in his first NFL game. I don't know if I would bet on it, but it's possible. And then let's see. Oh, I'm looking at week 2. What am I doing? I'm looking at week 2. I'm a knucklehead. That's the week 2 schedule. Pat, it's week 1, right? It's week 1. Yeah, you guys are calling me out right now. You're keeping me honest. Oh, man. Season hasn't even started yet, and I'm skipping ahead to week 2. Can you just let week 1 happen, Pat? All right. Sorry, I'll try to go through it again real quick, Tommy. So quarterbacks in week 1 that go under 200 yards. Let's see. We have Steelers, Falcons. I could see Russell Wilson going under 200 in that one. I wouldn't bet on it. Let's see. Cardinals in Buffalo is a possibility. I wouldn't bet that either, though. Levis in Chicago. I like that. Tennessee, New England and Cincinnati. I like that under 200. Possible for Richardson against the Colts at home under 200, though I wouldn't bet on that. Panthers, Saints. I think Bryce Young on the road. I would like that under 2. Vikings, Giants. Let's see. That's an interesting one there. I think Vikings, Giants, maybe Sam Darnold under 200, even if they win the game, maybe they get ahead and they run the ball a lot. But I would stay away from that one. Raiders at Chargers. Actually, there's not a lot. There's not as many in week 1 as week 2. Commanders, Buccaneers, Cowboys, Browns, Jets, Niners, Rams, Lions, Seahawks, Broncos. Yeah, there's actually not many in week 1. I think I like Levis at the Bears going under 200 as my favorite of that group. And then if you had to pick a couple more, I'd probably go with like Bryce Young in New Orleans. Jaden Daniels against Tampa is an interesting one because he could do some damage, but it's also a rookie's first start on the road against a good defensive coordinator and coach. So that's a tough one. Bangkok says Super Bowl will be Ravens Niners. I like that pick as well. Mark says, when is Talkin Ball going to collab with Talkin Giants? Those guys do all sorts of interviews with other guys on the beat. Would make for good content. Mark, if I'm invited on shows, I typically try my hardest to come on. So if I get that invite, then then you'll probably see it. Dave Z says, I'm 18 minutes late. Tom Coughlin would find my ass. Dave, better late than never, man. Better late than never. And yes, you're right. The fine jar, the lid of the 5 jar has been removed for you to plop your money in there. Let's see. Chronicles thinks the Texans are good, but not that good, like the Niners much more and the Bengals. A2Z me says, going to place a bet on the Texans to win it all. If they don't, I'm coming after you, Pat. Understood, A2. That's more than fair. Sprinkle the Bengals too, because like I said, that was the other team. Bengals, Niners, Texans, those are the teams I'm tossing in my head. Packers right there too. Maybe a little Rams, maybe a little, who's the other team I'm missing that I had? Oh yeah, Lions. But I would say Bengals, Niners, Texans, sprinkle a little there. My pick is the Texans. Michael says, damn, Pat, you're big time now. Just had 2 ads in the middle of the live. Yeah, Michael, sorry about that. No, that's just when you have a certain amount of followers on YouTube, YouTube pops ads into your feed in this way. But I do have it controlled because some people turn ads on aggressive, right? There's a setting you can put it on where ads are just hitting you all the time. And, that can make you more money if you're a creator, but, it can compromise the viewer experience and the whole kind of purpose of why we do this, right? So, I have it at a balanced and reasonable setting to make sure that it doesn't get interrupted too much. So sorry about that, but part and parcel of the channel growing a little bit. NYC says, great show with Authentic the other night, Pat. NYC, thank you for saying that. And I got to be honest, I can't believe, like Authentic and I talked about it right after the show. It felt like we had worked together before. I mean, we rolled back and forth. Like we worked off of each other and collaborated so easily and naturally. It was so much fun. I think it showed me that that's an exciting way to go for me. Like I would, as far as, more chats where we bring creators on, we bring Giants creators on and we do that type of stuff. I think that would be a lot of fun. It could be maybe having guests on and doing just live episodes instead of doing recorded episodes. So having like guests on from around the league, players, etc., and bringing them on live, like that type of stuff might be fun too. So a lot of potential there. I'm excited about setting up my next creator series podcast. I think that'll be a lot of fun. Dave Z says, hit that like button and buy some Boom Chaga. Thank you for saying that, Dave. Intel, yes, I took your Super Bowl pick. That's for sure. Elias says, the thing about the Texans pick, Pat, is that if they see the Chiefs in the playoffs, I don't think they win. Yeah, so that's a fair point. I mean, I think that would be a good game. In my picks, I ended up aligning it so that the Bengals knocked off the Chiefs because the Bengals, we know, can beat the Chiefs in big games. Intel says, I told everybody the same thing. I think it's going to be Packers versus Texans, and Jordan Love throw interceptions in the fourth quarter to lose the game. Bangkok says to Mark, I asked this to Talkin Giants, and Skinner said he doesn't want to interview Pat. I don't know what the beef is about. No beef. No beef. No beef. I don't know why that is, but yeah, I mean, all good here. I am interested in, what I respect about the guys at Talkin Giants a lot is their work ethic. They grind. Like anybody in this business who works hard and who works in earnest to build and create and with passion and understands that it's all about waking up the next day and doing it again, like that deserves to be saluted and applauded. And so what those guys have built is great. I mean, that's excellent. I think, I don't begrudge anybody who would create something like that. And that's why I like doing this creator series, is I really do want to give back and acknowledge the people who are putting in the time and effort and creating really good content. And listen, I know some of you think Authentic is too critical of the Giants or whatever. And some of you may think I'm too critical of the Giants, but I think he's real. I think he's honest. I think he's smart and extremely well researched on the team, both historically and currently. And there's going to be other creators we have on that, don't agree with me on everything as much as Authentic does, and that'll create a different type of conversation and topic. And so, no problem with that. All right, let's see. Intel predicts they take Carson Beck from Georgia with the 5th overall pick. Let's see. Steven says, Pat, what's your thought on the Nabers number 1 unretirement? I thought it was weird and wasn't talked about a lot. Yeah, Steven, it was very odd. It was also something that, the oddest part was when we asked Nabers about why number 1, he didn't really have an answer for it. Like, he couldn't say why he wanted it other than basically like it looks cool or whatever. So, I think that was a little bit odd, as far as like what the story is behind, like why you unretired a legend's number. Right. So I think, Stephen, what I think is I didn't have an overreaction or much of a reaction at all to it, because I knew he was going to change a number. I knew he was going to change his number, and I knew that, that they didn't have a lot of options, and I knew he wanted a single digit. Right. I do think there's potential for it to be a sticky situation, because like it creates more pressure. He's a rookie. He's 21 years old, and you're unretiring a number for him. Now, one thing I wonder about, and you think about, is how many players before him have asked for certain numbers and they've been told, no, that number's retired, you can't wear it. Right. And now they're unretiring it for a 21-year-old rookie. What this means is that this kid has to play really well, out of his mind, earn it so quickly that no one's talking about it anymore. That's what it means. So really, Steven, it doesn't bother me a whole lot. I agree. It's a little weird. I think really it's just going to come down to how he plays. And it's just another element of, let's see what you got, kid. Right. We just unretired Ray Flaherty's number. And also remember this too, like, this definitely is going to set a precedent, I would think, for other players down the road to say, well, if you unretired 1 for him, why not unretire, a different number for me? So, that could be a slippery slope, but, it could end up not being an issue too. But I agree. It was a little bit odd. Let's see. Look at Dave Z saying that he had the answer to my trivia question, but he's got to share the wealth. So claiming, it seems, that he would have beaten Chronicles to the punch there. Some trash talk. I like it. Yes, Doug says the summer of O-line retirements in 2021. That's right. Chronicle says Boom Chaga about to hit after practice, no doubt. Michael says, yeah, Hog Mollies is a nickname that should be retired. Let's see. Dave says Adoree is an upgrade over McLeod, but still they are in trouble in the secondary. I think that's probably fair. I do think, listen, you're going to give these guys a chance. Give these guys a chance too. Like, I think it'd be fair for Nick McLeod or Cordell Flott or whoever to be sitting there right now when they see Adoree Jackson sign and say, I thought the plan here was to like roll with me and see where this, and to kind of see where this goes, and like let me earn it before you pivot off. I think that from the Giants front office standpoint and coaching standpoint, you have to do what's best for the team for sure. But I don't think it would, while you're doing that, I don't think it would be wrong if the players felt like, come on, like this was going to be my one chance. Like, give me a shot. Again, I think it just shows that there's pressure on them to come out of the gate and win right away. Bombo says, I'd be more afraid if they felt really confident in the corners. That's fair. Colvin says Mara is not having that, though. Chronicle says Joe Shane can't win. He gets hate for saying he's going to lean on a young corner like Flott. Then when he goes and gets a vet to play CB2, now it's looked at as desperation. That's just not fair. Chronicles, I think it wouldn't be looked at as desperation if he signed any other veteran who with pedigree. The reason it's being looked at with a critical eye like this is because I and many others who are around the team know that the Giants did not have a high opinion of Adoree last year at all. Coming out of last season, they didn't think he played well. They didn't like his effort. This was not in the cards. Bringing this player back was not in the cards. So you're right, Chronicles, that like if they had brought in a different kind of vet at this juncture, I don't think there would have been a kind of an eyebrow raise at it. It would have been definitely validates anybody who was coming out of those Jets practices saying there's nothing to see here. Look, the defense is fine. Well, they just went and signed Adoree Jackson like a week and a half after it. So that tells you how they felt about it. But, I think that you look at this right now and you say, yes, you were calling for Joe Shane to sign a corner. Okay. Yes, he finally does. And Gabe, you're right. 99 out of 100 times it'd be like, well, he finally did. Don't get on him now for that. He finally did. It's because I know that, the Giants, they didn't intend to bring him back. They didn't think he played well. They didn't want him back. It wasn't in the cards, and now it is. So that's the kind of asterisk on it. Bombo says, I'd be more afraid if they were confident in the corners. Do you think it's concerning Daboll said he'd put Adoree at punt return, considering it almost tanked the defense in 2022? I think it's an indication, again, that it's just all hands on deck right now. He may be making it up and saying he'll potentially punt return when it's not in the plans at all. Like that might be Daboll kind of steering us the wrong way and kind of running a smokescreen on it. But to me, that seemed like a genuine, like, hey, it might happen. It's potentially in the cards. So we know Adoree loves to do it. Adoree loves returning more than he loves anything. I mean, he loves returning. So him coming back, him saying, I want to make sure I'm wanted, him loving returning, them possibly needing a week one returner. To me, it all feels like it possibly adds up, but we'll see. We only care about September 8th, says Lucas. Yeah, I remember you last chat, Lucas. You just kept saying September 8th, September 8th. Giant Topic. What's up, Pat? What's up, Giants Topic? Great to see you. Bombo says, also, thanks for these. Hands down, my favorite Giants news source. Received my Boom Chaga today. Keep these going. All the best. Bombo, you ordered the Boom Chaga. Did you use the code? Did you use the Talkin Ball 25 code on subscribe and save? Hopefully you did. That gets you a big chunk off. And I hope you enjoy it. Hope you like the product. I think and know and believe you will. Did you use that code, though, or the QR code there, the Talkin Ball 25? Let me know if you did, Bombo. Thank you. One Talkin Ball viewer at a time, listener at a time, trying out some great products here. That's awesome. Great to see. Great to hear. All right, let's see. We're on to the next. No Met says, why use him as a returner? We saw what happened last time. Why risk it if we're already thin at corner? Yeah, that could be one reason, No Mets, that maybe the Giants would pivot off of it and not use him. But, the reason would be behind Adoree Jackson, behind Gunnar Olszewski right now, really it's Darius Slayton and Wandle Robinson right now as punt returners, other than Gunnar Olszewski on the current active roster. So that's what they're showing on the field. Now, you could have those guys do it, but Wandale's he's a mainstay on their offense. Also, we don't know how effectively he would do a punt return if he was out back there every time. How would his hands be back there? Darius Slayton, kind of like an use only in emergencies type guy. So the depth chart is very thin back there. Depth chart is very thin. Juicy Juice, thank you so much for the super chat, setting a good example. He says, Adoree was a first rounder and Jim Thorpe award winner. He's 28 and had a bad season. I think he's going to surprise people. Listen, he is an upgrade over what they have. You have to imagine he will provide you an upgrade. That said, will it be enough to fix what the Giants see needs to be fixed? That's the question, right? Will it be a dramatic improvement? Dave Z says, I'm in media Pepsi shape. Steven wants to know the Adoree contract. Still don't know the terms. I've been waiting to see if it was going to roll in. It has not yet. So trying to get to that as soon as I can. Once I have it, you guys will have it. Let's see. Michael says, long shot, thoughts on Jackson Dart, and if you think the Giants will draw interest if Jones doesn't pan out. I think, listen, Jackson Dart and Ole Miss, they started out, big time there. Of course, they played a cupcake in Furman, but six first half touchdowns from Jackson there. And, they routed, I think that's a quarterback, one of the several quarterbacks that we've been talking about here that could be on the board for the Giants in a deep quarterback draft, who could be on the board and could be eligible for them to select if Daniel Jones doesn't work out for them and they end up moving on. Yes, I think that's one player, one quarterback that you have to keep in mind. Also keep in mind Joe Judge on the Ole Miss staff right now that just routed Furman like 1-0 on Labor Day weekend in their opener. So that's something to keep an eye on. Jackson Dart is definitely one of the names to watch. Dave Z says, with the first pick in 2027, the Giants select Arch Manning. The real question is, who will be the stopgap until then? I love that you guys kind of see that, the pattern, the writing on the wall. It will be amazing if it actually comes to that, Dave Z. That would be ridiculous for you to be saying that here in 2024 and that to come to pass. But listen, we know, like when they drafted Daniel Jones, I think my lead to the story was the Giants loved Eli Manning so much they drafted him again. I'm pretty sure that was my lead when they drafted Daniel Jones. So to your point, Danny Dudd says, if Mara gave 6 years to Daniel Jones, he will give 10 years to Arch to prove himself. Lucas says, we've got depth, meaning the Giants have depth. You are crazy. And says September 8th, all the bots will hide. So I can see Lucas does not appear to agree with maybe my opinion of the Giants season, clearly. And that's okay, Lucas. That's totally okay. I would be curious, Lucas, which depth, which positions do you feel like the Giants have strong depth in? And then maybe we can talk about those individually. And I can tell you where I think they do, where I think they don't, where I think they might. As a broad strokes comment, I would say this. The Giants have a lot of possibilities, maybes, projected to be's. So there is potential in some of these situations and some of these positions for them to have better depth and better talent at certain positions than I believe they do. But I think a lot of it is hinging on, I hope this guy becomes this, right? I hope Jalen Hyatt becomes a guy that I can keep on the field a lot. I hope Deonte Banks is a true number one corner. I hope that somebody, elevates their game and can become a legitimate starting defensive tackle next to Dexter Lawrence, who can stop the run. Like all of those things. I hope that we have a third edge rusher who I can count on. Iconic, what's going on? He says, what's up, Pat? Have the starting offensive line been practicing more together? Do you think Daniel Jones might get at least league average to throw the ball? So what? We saw them, I think, practice once so far. They had a walkthrough today. So not technically not a full practice or anything, but a walkthrough. So they're on the field together. I think that, Iconic, we saw that the plays where they're trying to draw it up for Daniel Jones to push the ball down the field, if Illuminor can be even a serviceable right tackle in pass protection, which he was in the preseason, then I think you're looking at Daniel Jones finally being to make some of those throws. The interior, obviously, with Schmitz and Runyon and Van Roten, is it fixed? Maybe not. Is it better? It looks like it is, again, in pass protection. I have a lot of questions about their run push that they've gotten so far, so I think that's important. Also, Runyon, obviously, with the shoulder, will he hold up? That's something to keep an eye on. another one of those injury situations that you continue to monitor. But Iconic, I do think there's a chance that they have more time to throw than they did last year. And, listen, last year it was almost like a non-starter on a lot of their pass plays, their inability to get plays off, to run plays, for Daniel Jones to not even be able to execute what he had called. So I think the hope is that, and the belief based on coming out of the preseason, is that it's going to be better than that. But I will say this, Iconic, every now and then, to me, you see a free runner. So like it'll be like 2 or 3 well-protected plays and then one jailbreak, right? So that's what we've seen throughout the preseason. Now that's what practice is for. That's what you see teams throwing different looks at you. And also, Iconic, they're starting out against a very interesting opponent. Like Brian Flores will send the house. He will blitz you. It will be nonstop. The pressure will be everywhere. It'll be in Daniel Jones's face. They'll be trying to force a mistake. They'll be trying to force the Giants into missed assignments, holding penalties on runners and blitzers coming from all different angles. So it'll be a stiff challenge for them in week 1 to kind of hold the fort, because it'll be a more exotic defense than some of the other ones they will face. Let's see. No Mets loves Montreal, says he was surprised when he visited the first time. Old Montreal is the best. I love old Montreal, walking around the cobblestone streets. Bill says, play fantasy football. They said it will be fun. All I have is anxiety. First time doing it. I have no idea what the F I am doing. Bill, you know what I like doing is doing the daily fantasy leagues. So like I'm in a league with, friends of mine on FanDuel, and they have daily fantasy where you can, let's say there's 20 of us, and you can pick a different team every week. So you don't do a draft every week. Everybody can pick from the same amount of players, the same players. Like you could take Lamar Jackson and I could take Lamar Jackson, in week 1, we could both have them. And you have a certain amount of money to spend on your salary cap, and you build a team with that week. Highest score pays out, total score for the final season, top 3 payout, those types of things. That's fun. And it's less like constant management and the anxiety that you're talking about that can come with the draft league. So sometimes it's just better formats for people as well. Let's see. Ashley says, Pat, are you surprised the Vikings are favorites? Ashley, I'm glad you asked that question. What is the line at right now? Is it somebody have the line in front of them for the game right now? Let's see. What is the Vikings Giants line? Let me look this up. While you guys are looking it up for me, because I don't have that in front of me. I am not surprised the Vikings are favored, Ashley, because I think that the Giants staff is full of so many first timers on this staff, like including defensive coordinator, even like from the standpoint of Brian Daboll being the first year full-time offensive play caller, Daniel Jones off injury. Like there's just a lot of change, a lot of unknown coming off of a really down year with a lot of dysfunction. So I think it's more like a wait and see from Vegas in that regard, more than anything. Also, Kevin O'Connell is a very good coach. Minnesota with O'Connell and Brian Flores might have the coaching advantage in this game. In fact, I think if you were grading it right now, pregame, who has the coaching advantage going in, you have to give the Vikings the edge as we sit here now. So I think that's a huge part of it as well. Now, the Giants might have, you guys tell me what you think. Whose roster do you like better? Because the Vikings lost to Neal Hunter on defense. They did add Stephon Gilmore, but they lost their best pass rusher. Their linebackers are kind of meh. They have good safeties. They have a good coordinator. But even their interior D line is not, they got Harrison Phillips, a former Buffalo Bill. I think is Jerry Tillery on the roster. Some other guys working in there, Jonathan Bullard, the former Houston Texan. But the Giants defense stacks up well against that. Burns, Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, Bobby Okereke. Hopefully you can get something out of like a guy like Tyler Nubin at safety, and corner. We'll wait and see. Maybe Banks steps up and is that guy against a Justin Jefferson. But, I think it's fair to say like Gabe says he likes the Giants roster more than Minnesota. I think it's fair to say that the Giants roster wise, you can look at that and say, hey, we might have more higher end players than the Vikings do, right? Like kind of adding it all up. Now that said, is Nabers a Justin Jefferson game changer right away? Because Justin Jefferson is that dude, right? We know that this is a guy who changes games, who could be impossible for the Giants possibly to defend. And, Addison, Jefferson. Now, Darnold, of course, if you pass rush him, you fluster him. If Brian Burns and those guys get after him, then they could make it a long day for him too. But the Vikings offensive line's pretty good. Aaron Jones is an excellent back, and skill player wise, especially with Justin Jefferson, that's the best player on the field in that game, right? Him or Dexter Lawrence probably ends up being the player of the game. I guess Aaron Jones would be another eligible member, right? So that's where I go with that, is kind of, you have the Giants actually do, and Gabe agrees. I wonder what you all think. The Giants roster stacks up pretty well there, but I think Justin Jefferson is an X factor as far as like the elite top best of the best. And then also I think it's a coaching, commentary as much as anything, Ashley, that the Vikings are favored on the road in week 1 against the Giants in that way. That's how I read that. I think it is related to faith in Kevin O'Connell to get the most out of a guy like Sam Darnold, right? And I think that's what that is. All right, let's see. The odds for the Giants and Vikings. Let's see. Checking out our Bet Online odds here. So the line is Minnesota favored by 1. So yeah, it's tight there. Minnesota 1-point favorite, which means that the Giants would technically be favored on a neutral site. If it was a, let's see. Yeah, no, I mean, listen, that tells you, wow, listen to this. The game total over under for that game is 41. So not only is it a Vikings favored by 1 point, but also that not only is it Vikings favored by 1, it's also projected to be an extremely low scoring game. Dope Dez says, is the O-line good enough to run? We don't run enough, and that's Giants football. What do you think? First of all, Dope Dez, thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate that. Is the O-line good enough to run? I think so. Dez, in the preseason, things that looked on the up and up, okay? Pass protection looked a little bit better. I'm not going to say it's definitely fixed, but it looks a little bit better. Pass rush is definitely better with Brian Burns on this team. You're paying for that. He's making the pass rush better on defense. I have concerns and questions, though, about their run blocking on offense and their run stopping on defense. Neither of their edges are run stoppers. Precedent shows consistently. Dex is obviously an excellent player, but they're also short on defensive tackles, high-end defensive tackles, and middle linebacker behind Okereke is a question mark. So those are all, that's a question for me. I think when I watched them in Houston, sitting there in the press box at NRG Stadium, it seemed like they were really struggling to get a push, and they weren't even facing all of the Texans' top players on their defensive line either. I think 3 of their top 4 linemen did not play in that game, and the Giants' offensive line was really struggling to get a push. Singletary had something like 10 carries for 20 yards or something like that. And that was what we saw throughout the preseason, even in practices. I felt like we saw, 2 runs for very little and then 1 that popped, 2 runs for very little and 1 that popped, something like that. I think, Des, my answer is wait and see. One of our viewers, one of our subscribers on this chat, I can't remember who it was, pointed out about a month ago when they signed Van Roten, asked me what the Raiders' offensive line stats were. And the Raiders were among, I think they were like the second worst, or they were in the bottom 5 for sure of run blocking of offensive lines in the league last year. Now, obviously, Illuminor and Van Roten were only a half or two fifths, right? 40% of that line. So it wasn't all on them. But just to point out, the Raiders didn't have a strong offensive line running the ball either last year. So more reason why they need to prove it. And Dope Des, remember too, Dable needs to call runs as well. That's another question. Like, one thing I always tell people about Devin Singletary and the offense when they ask is, I personally think, Des, that they're going to have to run the ball more than Dable wants to. I think there's going to be more elements of the 2022 offense than you would like, as far as, short catch and runs, jet sweeps, and even the run game with Singletary, heavy formations, tight ends in the backfield, whether it's Jacob Johnson, Daniel Bellinger, Theo Johnson, Chris Manhertz as a fullback, that type of stuff. But, the last time Singletary was the Brian Dable's primary back in Buffalo, that was when Dable got a reputation of never throwing the ball. That's what never running the ball. When Devin Singletary was Brian Dable's back in Buffalo, Dable never ran the ball. That was so that's always important to remember when you're looking at this. All right. MJ says, we're going to win on Sunday. Daniel Jones is going to carve the Vikings up like he did in the playoffs. I love the optimism, MJ. Barb says, the fact that Dable is calling plays will make a difference. Don't think Kafka should have ever called plays. We will see. Crystal Ball out of the shop says, if DJ throws a pick 6 before he throws a TD, we're in for a long season, says T. Ain't that the truth? A2ZB thinks I made a fair prediction on the season. Dave Z says God could have called the plays last year and they still wouldn't have blocked. I think that's true. MJ says we're going 9-8. This team is better than the 2022 team. You really don't believe in these guys. MJ, I see them every day. I like a lot of the players. I like a large part of this team. And I swear, I hope that this team does well, because I am tired of crappy seasons, bad football, and irrelevance in New York early on in the fall. It's not fun. It's not fun. We want wins. We want victories. We want good vibes. We want good feelings. That's what we want. But I feel like, MJ, like I said, one of the X factors for me is not believing they keep their key guys healthy, because they always have injury problems. And I don't think they're deep enough to withstand that. MJ says, no way the Giants go 4-13. If that happens, Dable, Joe, and DJ are out of here. Exactly. Tommy says, if they dominate the trenches like the Lions game, then they have a chance to win games. If not, you only win about 5 to 6 games. Sad to say. Yeah, I think that's a good evaluation. Let's see. Ray says Shadur is not the answer. Michael says there will be a big test versus the Browns early on. Yeah, these first 2 games present opportunities for the Giants. And if they don't take advantage of those opportunities against the Vikings and Commanders, it could be a long year. Lucas likes the Giants to go 11-6. Ray says 4-13. You're killing me. Let's see. Bill likes the new logo. Says the new logo looks great. Thank you, Bill. Ray says, Pat, who did you read as columnists in newspapers when you were young? Ray, I grew up in Philadelphia, so I grew up reading actually a lot of the Philadelphia Daily News at first, and then the Philadelphia Inquirer. But the Philadelphia Daily News was the paper that my dad always had, that I always read. Started with the box scores and worked from there. So any of the columnists in Philadelphia at that time, I think Bill Conlon was a big columnist at that time in the Daily News. And all the legends there. Bill Lyon. Let's see. Trying to think. I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, one of my favorite thing to read when I was a kid was Sports Illustrated and Gary Smith. Gary Smith was, you know, the epic storyteller, the guy who got to the heart of it all, who made you feel whatever he felt. That was, I thought, the best writing, the most fantastic storytelling, and kind of the pinnacle of the business and of the profession and of our work. I thought he just did a tremendous, excellent job. And so, yeah, but I started with the Philadelphia Daily News. Bill Conlon always jumped out to me because he was my father's favorite columnist in the Daily News, and so that's what I was always reading. But yeah, Bill Lyon also from the Inquirer, the late Bill Lyon, was also like a tremendous person who I looked up to as a writer and as a reporter and as a columnist. Ray says Euro Division NFL incoming. Yeah, that's right. Barb says the new logo is fire. Thank you so much. Brett says Wandle Robinson will have a huge year. What's up, Pat? Yeah, if you don't know already, Wandle Robinson is who I'm telling everybody. Late round, go get PPR league, go get Wandle Robinson. I don't know how many yards he'll have, but he'll have a lot of touches of the football. That's for sure. Open Minds Freestyle, I like that name, says 9 or 8 or 8 and 9. Coaching is too good to go under 8 unless we get hit with the injury bug again. I mean, keeping guys healthy doesn't happen around here often. That's the thing. I agree with you. There's, like I was on Bruce Beck's show the other day, and and he asked me if I thought 6-7 wins was possible. And I said, it's possible, but they have to stay healthy, but, and then they need to win some games early. So that's really the difference between 4 and 7 for me, is staying healthy and getting off to a good start versus a bad one. John P says, outside of the obvious, like big JJ game, etc., what measuring stick should we be looking for from Shane Bowen's defense? What would be an eye-opening concern for you? Eye-opening concern, John, would be not getting off the field on third downs. It would be not stopping the run. Of course, we talked last week about making sure that in the red zone, they're holding teams to 3 and not 6. That needs to start right away, because I really do think that the scheme that they're running is designed to keep the ball in front of them and to limit big plays as much as they can. And they're going to play more zone than you're used to seeing from the Wink Martindale days there, even though he did have to play some zone because of the personnel, or some more zone than he typically did in Baltimore. But you're going to see more zone here from Bowen and the ball kept in front of them. So the priorities in those situations are obviously keep the ball in front of you. Don't let it behind you, like we've seen throughout the summer anyway. And then stopping the run, which is, as Daboll said when they were hiring him in Hard Knocks, you could see the main selling point, and he was not obviously their first or second choice in that interview process for DC. But the selling point was that the Titans defenses, when he was there, stopped the run. And so I think, John P., you say measuring stick that we should be looking for Shane Bowen's defense, getting off the field on third downs, because if they're giving up yardages, right? Are they in third and shorts, right? Are they giving up third and shorts? Are they able to get off the field? Are they able to, when the team goes 4 wide or trips or whatever it is, when they're going 11 personnel, are they able to defend that in the secondary if the pass rush doesn't get there? But to me, the run game, Aaron Jones, the Vikings offensive line, and the run game, to me, that's my number one measuring stick for him. And then it's also getting off the field on third downs. If they can stop the run and get off the field on third downs, I think that takes care of the rest of it. But like I said, based on the type of defense they're throwing out there and the scheme that they're running, they will be in some spots, again, facing against skill players like this, Jefferson, Addison, et cetera. They will be in positions where the Vikings are in the red zone, and it's just about making them kick a field goal instead of letting them in the end zone. Like that, you know what I mean? Like that's going to be imperative. Let's see. Believer says, name a defensive line better than the Giants. Name a defensive line better than the Giants. The 49ers. Baltimore Ravens, the Kansas City Chiefs. Chris Jones is, he's one of the best players in football. Let's see. The Pittsburgh Steelers. Who else? Let's see. I don't know if the Jets are now with losing, Huff and Franklin Myers and Reddick not on the field for them. The Jets could be, but they might not be. I think the Lions are right there. The Cowboys are not there because they don't have the interior. They have the edge rushers though. Like if you include Parsons and Lawrence, I think they're right there. The Eagles have a chance to be as well. No more Aaron Donald with the Rams though there. So Chicago's got a strong defense, obviously not as star-studded up front, though they do have a Montez Sweat. So, listen, the Giants have, believer, to your point, the Giants have Brian Burns making almost $30 million a year. Dexter Lawrence making, 24 and a half or 20, 23 and a half, 22 and a half, something like that a year. And then Kayvon Thibodeau, a number 5 overall pick, all 3 first-round picks, 2 of them on huge second contracts. And Kayvon Thibodeau, a third-round player, was picked number 5 overall. So that's a lot of investment in that position. It needs to be the strength of the team. It's one of the stronger units in the league on paper. You're absolutely right. There's no question about it. And that's what they need to succeed. That's what they need to lead them. Going back to John P's question, ultimately, if the pass rush is put in a position where they can get to the quarterback, and they do consistently and lead the team that way, that will turn into a favorable and good Giants season. If the Giants are behind a lot and the other team's running the ball, they have to throw the ball. Daniel Jones is in obvious passing situations. Burns and Thibodeau are being asked to stop the run all the time, and they can't pin their ears back. That's how it goes the other way. So dictating the terms of the game and getting that pass rush in those situations, that's imperative. That's important. Tommy says, Pat, you hold the shows down just fine with no help. Thank you for saying that, Tommy. Really appreciate that. Tommy says, the more we watch the ads, the more Pat gets paid, everyone. Watch the ads for over a minute and a half to get Pat some extra cheese. Thank you for saying that. Really appreciate that, Tommy. Dave Z says, I like the Texans, but I think they take a step back this year, a year to study tape on their scheme, and teams won't take them lightly after the year they had. That said, they have a very bright future. Yeah, it's possible, too, that the Colts being, probably a little bit better, obviously, with Richardson there, that could factor in there as well. A big game for the Texans and Colts in week 1. This week 1 schedule is great. So I'm sure you guys are all aware, obviously, you're diehards watching Talkin Ball right now, but we kick off the NFL season, coming up here in week 1 with Ravens at Chiefs, Thursday Night Football on Thursday, September 5th. And then on Friday, we have Packers Eagles at 8:15 Friday PM from Brazil. And then on Sunday, we have matchups like Texans Colts. We have Giants Vikings, obviously. We've got Cowboys Browns is an interesting one. Rams Lions. Monday night is Jets Niners. Can't wait for that one. Monday, September 9th. That's going to be a fun game right off the bat. Aaron Rodgers going back to Cali to play the Niners there in Northern California. That's going to be a great one. Let's see. All right. Chronicle says Adoree Jackson had a hell of a year in 2022 and is only 28. So if you looked at who was left on the market, Adoree made the most sense. Oh yeah, no, for sure. For sure that it was thin. There weren't a lot of corners out there left. Just in reference to your comment earlier, Gabe, it was just more about knowing what the Giants think of him as a player. Let's see. Bombo used the QR code for Boom Chaga, shipped to Vancouver, Canada. No issues. Bombo, that is great to hear. Thank you for ordering Boom. Give us your feedback on it, please. Leave those reviews. Thank you so much for ordering. Really, guys, the thing you can do most to support this channel at the moment is to buy a bag of Boom Chaga using that code Talkin Ball 25. That is what you can do to most support us right now, outside of course, being here and asking questions and participating. Talkin Ball Live, by the way, is brought to you by the Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, a natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants and heart-healthy compounds. You can easily pour this natural liquid supplement into any of your favorite drinks. I put mine in my coffee every morning and immediately feel the difference. I personally have felt a post-workout-like energy boost with Boom. Chaga also has the ability to lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and improve immune and heart health with beta-glucans and antioxidants. Go to boomchaga.com today to place your first order. And if you use the discount code TalkinBall25 or access it through the QR code on your screen, just as Bombo did, you will get 25% off your first subscribe and save order. Right now, that means a month's supply costs you only $30. Start feeling the difference today at boomchaga.com. Boom, Bombo did it. You can do it too. All right. I think Debbie doesn't like me picking the Cowboys to win the NFC East. I can understand why, Debbie. Hopefully, it's the Giants. And we're talking about the Giants winning the NFC East for the first time in a long time. Cecil defends the Giants, says they won 6 games with no quarterback last year and a bunch of injuries. So Cecil, that you're absolutely right about that. The thing about it is, though, is it's revisionist history, I think, to take that as to look at that way. Like, what I mean by that is this. The Giants started last season and went 1-5 in their first 6 games, and they went 2-8 in their first 10 games. Daniel Jones was playing up until that Miami game, right? He gets hurt in the Miami game. So they were 1-3, and then on their way to 1-4 before he got hurt. Then he came back and obviously gets hurt in that Vegas Raiders games. But they also had Tyrod Taylor, who is a better he was a better backup last year than I think what they have on the roster this year. And so they had capable quarterback play. And they still only went 1-2 in those 2 starts in the middle there against Buffalo, the Jets, and Washington before Daniel Jones comes in. He gets hurt. And then you have the Dallas embarrassment followed by the 3-game win streak after DeVito's bad game in Dallas. They beat the Commanders, Patriots, and Packers. And then, of course, they finished losing 3 of their last 4 to the Saints, Eagles, and Rams before beating the Eagles in the last game. But what I'm bringing that up, Cecil, to say you're absolutely right that they won 6 games despite a lot of injuries last year. But I counter with, I think it's fair to predict them to not win a lot of games because last year their offense so they lost to Dallas, didn't score a point. They beat the Cardinals, obviously had a big second half, 31-28. In week 3, they scored 12 points, scored 1 touchdown. In week 4 against Seattle, 3 points, no touchdowns. Miami, 16 points, 1 touchdown by the defense. Week 6, 9 points, no touchdowns. 2 touchdowns against the Commanders. Jets, 10 points, 1 touchdown. Vegas Raiders, 6 points, no touchdowns. My point is this. You can say they had 6 games, so that means that they'll definitely get to that with a roster that looks a little bit better to you this year. My counter to that is they were 1-5 and 2-8 right off the gate, right off the bat, barely scoring any points on offense. So you're telling me you think Nabers and Brian Daboll calling plays and a little bit better offensive line obviously means that is all going to change significantly for the better. And I'm saying I think it's possible, but I don't think it's necessarily a guarantee. And I think that they can't afford injuries to undercut that effort is all I'm saying. Right? Obviously, maybe Malik Nabers is the answer. Maybe pivoting off Saquon Barkley and a run heavy approach and going to your best skill player being a wide receiver is the answer. Maybe the Giants will turn it on. Maybe they'll turn up. Maybe they will turn into an explosive offense. I hope you're right, Cecil. I hope you're right. But I think it's kind of a false equivalence to say, well, they won 6 games last year. Because I think the way I look at it is, they started 1-5, then 2-8, and then, DeVito gets all the credit for that win streak. And obviously good for him for, putting his best foot forward and especially in the Green Bay game. I think he deserved credit in that Green Bay game for how he played in the critical moments late. But the defense played out of its mind and forced turnover after turnover. I can't remember. It was like 13 or 14 turnovers in those 3 games. And Martindale, the DC of those games, is no longer here. Not to mention that was how they flustered and flummoxed the Eagles and beat them to a pulp in the last game. So a lot of changes that don't make it necessarily a guarantee that, oh, they won 6, that means this. I don't think that's like I don't subscribe to that logic, but I understand what you're saying. Michael says, what's up, Pat? Sorry I'm late. Saw you last night with Bruce Beck. Yeah, thank you, Mike. That was a lot of fun. If you guys missed it, you definitely check out Sports Final with Bruce Beck on NBC4 here in New York. It's always a pleasure to go on with Bruce. He is the gold standard here of New York sports and a great friend and a great person and a hard worker, the hardest worker you'll find in the business. Really respect Bruce, and I was grateful and honored to go on. Was wearing my Salarettas, nice and fit. Salarettas of Midland Park, New Jersey, keeps me ready, classed up, and prepared for the pregame fits. Those Salaretta pregame fits at MetLife Stadium and wherever the Giants are playing pregame. Check it out on YouTube Shorts, Instagram, TikTok before every Giants game, showing you how the Giants look rolling in, what their style, their fashion, and their drip looks like, and how it stacks up against my Salaretta outfit. Big Pat says, Adoree is cheap, knows the system. The other options left on the market are not the best. Honestly, Adoree makes sense no matter how his year went last year at this point. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, right. Totally. Yeah, there's reasons he makes sense. Also, the one thing about Adoree is, last time he, played a big game for the Giants against the Minnesota Vikings, he helped shut down Justin Jefferson. I think Jefferson had like 7 catches for 47 yards in that playoff game or something like that. So that's another encouraging thing from a standpoint of week 1 Vikings. What can Adoree Jackson bring? A2Z Me says, just followed Pat on Twitter and the suggested follows listed beneath him included Bobby Skinner. It's funny. 2 guys tweeting a lot about the Giants. Chronicles likes Minnesota, Giants roster more than Minnesota. Let's see. Big Pat says, Giants roster is better than the Vikings, but I guess I'm biased. Nice little rematch to start the season. Barb says, is Addison even playing? I believe he is. I haven't heard anything otherwise. He's been banged up with an ankle injury, I believe. But he is back practicing with the team. Let's see. They actually updated it this, I think today on Labor Day. So Addison injured his left ankle. So Monday, he has a chance to play in the season opener. He was on the field with his teammates, participating during the open portion of practice. So, he was carted off on August 14th after jumping for a pass. So I don't know whether he's definitely playing or not. It has been, from what I can sense, it felt like it was tracking towards him likely playing in the game. But the official injury report will come out on Wednesday, and then we'll know more then. By the way, would you guys rather I do Talkin Ball live on Wednesday night instead of Thursday night this week because of Thursday night football? Would that be a better time to do it? Or do you want to keep Thursdays and kind of juggle Talkin Ball live with the Chiefs Ravens game there? Let me know what you think and your opinions there. Big Pat thinks Dable outcoached Kevin O'Connell last time. Well, Pat, Dable obviously, the 2 wins against or the near loss against Minnesota and then followed by the playoff win. I think that playoff win was definitely Dable and the offense putting it to the Vikings defense, right? So Dable certainly outcoaching the Vikings defense in that spot. And then Martindale's defense doing a good job on the Vikings offense. I think that Kevin O'Connell versus Shane Bowen is a mismatch in the Vikings' favor. And then we'll see in regards to Dable Flores how that looks. So that will be the question mark there. But you're absolutely right, obviously, that the Giants took it to the Vikings 2 years ago in the playoffs with Daboll at the helm, winning Coach of the Year that year. Believer says, big props. Same to you, Believer. Thank you. Dave Z says, why is Daboll being stubborn about Evan Neal playing guard? Since he is a backup now, why not cross-train for a potential position switch while still being, sad to say, an emergency swing tackle? I have no idea, Dave. I mean, the only reason to be stubborn on that would be there's a couple of reasons. One, they don't have strong backup tackle play. So from a standpoint of what do we do if Illuminor or Andrew Thomas goes down, knock on wood, as much as Evan Neal hasn't proven he can do it consistently yet on the right side, on the roster, what else do they have? What are their other options there? So there's definitely, I think, an element of let's really try to make this work because we don't have great depth there otherwise, Josh Azudu, et cetera. I also think sometimes in situations like this, it's also like the front office trying to justify its evaluation of the player and why they selected him and where they selected him. Now, I'm not saying that's definitely what this is, but to me, when you ask these questions and you don't get, it's just like, well, he's not playing guard, he's playing tackle. That's where we're keeping him, that kind of thing. To me, like that's not a good enough answer to why you're not trying it, especially when, as I've told you guys before, plenty of people who know Evan Neal think that he would be better off on the left side, even if it's at left guard, right? He's obviously not going to be the left tackle. Believer says, I was at the Dolphins game. Defense looked very slow last year, right? Adding Burns, Noob, and Phillips should help. Yeah, hopefully it does. FYI, Believer, everybody looks slow against the Dolphins skill players. But that said, that's a really good observation by you there. I think that's a good one. And you're right. This is why this infusion of youth and talent hopefully helps. Christian says, and this is totally fair, if we can't beat Sam Darnold, expect a bad season. No doubt. Big Pat says, if we can't beat Sam Darnold, come on. Yeah, I totally agree. Daniel says, Pat, if the season goes south, do you think it's smart to break things up? I think it's important to have continuity. Depends on how badly it goes south, Daniel, and what goes wrong and why. Like, to me, if none of Shane's draft picks are panning out at all, if the roster looks like a disaster, if you have injuries all over the place, if Daboll is a mess on the sidelines, right? Like that's how things come off the rails and everybody loses their job. I mean, it's totally true that the Maras, like they, John Mara does not want a lack of continuity. John Mara wants stability. He wants to stop firing people every 2 years. That's part of the reason we're looking at year 3 of this regime. Frankly, I think they showed patience after the way last season ended and just saying, we're going to stick by you. So like that, I do think that. But, that said, I think, what they want to happen and the fact that they want to stay patient, that can be tested and jeopardized by what your results look like. Now, Daniel, to your point, I think if they can find a fair amount of things to hang their hats on in this season, of course, their preference is to not blow it up, to not make huge changes, to sustain what they have in the building, to maintain their current staff. Definitely. That is their preference. I just think it depends on how bad it gets, so if they have 8-9 wins and things are on the up and up, especially on offense and with some of the young players Shane has added, and things are pointing in the right direction on how Daboll is managing the team, then yeah, of course they're coming back. If they win 6 or 7 games and there's some positive, some negative, maybe they rationalize bringing them back as well. In that case, it probably depends on what's going. Maybe that's the keep the GM, get rid of the coach scenario. Once you get towards like 6, under their 6.5 total, right? That kind of thing, 5, 6. When you get to 3, 4, 5 in that realm, to me, that's probably the range where they have no choice. So, it's probably how it stacks up. T, yes. Sorry for picking the Jets. I know I should have learned last year, but I did. Picking the Jets to win the AFC East. Figo, my final record prediction is 4-13 for the Giants. Hope I'm wrong, though. T says we get another young stud defensive tackle. Ooh la la. Did I miss something? Did something happen while I was on this channel? What are you talking about? A stud defensive tackle. Not sure who you're talking about there. T, please enlighten me. Let's see. A2 says, thanks for another great stream, Pat. Much appreciated. You got it. ZX says, I hope the narrative going into week 4 is that our D-line is no joke and a problem for the league. If that's the storyline, you know that the Giants are cooking. 6 game for drug test, Pat. Who? Jordan Addison? No, that's not. No. I think you're referring to a tweet that somebody put out on a fake account that said he was suspended for 6 games. That was not true. Jordan Addison is eligible for this game for the Minnesota Vikings. Let's see. Steven wants to know if I'm still going on about coffee. Steven, if you know me, you know I'm probably talking about coffee a fair amount of the time. I love it. But no, yeah, we're talking Giants and NFL football. And but yes, Estate 98 are my guys, and it's a great product for sure. All right, let's see. Dave Z says whatever schedule works for you as far as when we do Talkin Ball live. Okay, we'll see. Wednesday, Thursday. We'll make that probably the Vikings preview episode, like just talk exclusively about the matchup and try to really get into the weeds on that. And then obviously, what we have coming out of the locker room from a couple of days in the Giants locker room. Looking forward to talking to them about a big matchup. A lot of storylines coming into this. Michael likes Wednesday as well, and A2 says, good idea. Killer Cam says, how about this guy Pompey retracting the Josh Jacobs story? What was up with that? Interesting story, but even more interesting retraction. Yeah, very much so. Great point. All right, so for those who, I'm glad you brought that up, Cam. Thank you so much. So for those of you who are not aware, Dan Pompey for The Athletic, he wrote a story about Josh Jacobs' free agency and ending up in Green Bay. And he tweeted, the Giants offered the most. The Chiefs came at him hard. He thought he belonged with the Raiders. So why is he a Packer? Green Bay felt like home. And then he put the link to the story. So later he tweets, okay, so since this came out, a league source tells me the Giants never made an offer to Jacobs. Apologies for the spikes in blood pressures, and please permit Joe Shane to see another sunrise. Highly unusual, because obviously if he's told that the Giants offered the most by Josh Jacobs, why is Josh Jacobs telling him that, right? So is that a number that the Giants put on the table, but was never actually an official offer? They were just talking numbers, right? The way that the story read was, early last offseason, Jacobs felt a cold shoulder from the Raiders. Others, meanwhile, offered warm embraces. Among the teams that told his agent they were interested in signing him were the Bears, Broncos, Cardinals, Dolphins, Giants, Packers, and Texans. A most beguiling possibility was the Chiefs. They were trying to get me hard, he said, but there was no way I was going there. I feel like once you are rivals, he's talking about the Chiefs. Once you're rivals with somebody, you have a genuine hate for them. I couldn't see myself in that color, blah, blah, blah. Jacob says the Giants came on strong with an offer between $3 and $4 million more than he eventually accepted. But a league source said the Giants never made an offer to Jacobs. Highly unusual, that scenario. Just a weird scene. Obviously, the Giants, sources are telling Dan, I'm guessing that's the Giants saying, whoa, right? That they didn't make an offer for Jacobs. But interesting that Jacobs is portraying that the Giants were pursuing him after they let Saquon Barkley walk. And like you said, an unusual retraction there by Dan Pompey, just something you don't see very often. Dan is a reputable veteran NFL reporter at that. So all made it very unusual to see that occur. Thanks for bringing that up, Killicam. I hadn't gotten to that. All right, let's see. Dave Z says both points are great about Evan Neal. I do think he would benefit from less lateral movement. If he took to a switch to left guard, I think they could really have something. Yeah, no, agree with that. As of right now, he's a backup and not in their plans as a starter for week 1. It's a number 7 overall pick. But yeah, guys, you've been great. Gabe, thank you so much for getting that question right and participating in the Giants trivia. You'll have some Estate 98 and Boom Chaga coming your way. Just DM me on Instagram your address and we'll get to that. Remember, we are sponsored by Estate 98 Coffee. Talk estate98.com/Talkin Ball to get special buy one, get one free deal. Also by Bet Online and by Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, a natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants and heart-healthy compounds. You can easily pour this natural liquid supplement into any of your favorite drinks. I put mine in my coffee every morning and immediately feel the difference. I personally have felt a post-workout-like energy boost with Boom. Chaga also has the ability to lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and improve immune and heart health with its beta-glucans and antioxidants. Go to boomchaga.com today to place your first order. And if you use the discount code TalkinBall25 or access it through the QR code on your screen, you'll get 25% off your first subscribe and save order. Right now, that means a month's supply costs you only $30. Start feeling the difference today at boomchaga.com. Bombo did it. You can too. Boomchaga.com. Use the QR code on your screen or just the Talkin Ball 25 code. When you go to subscribe and save, type in Talkin Ball 25 code or use the QR code here on your screen and you'll get the deal. You can cancel the subscription after you get your first bag if you want. No harm done. I think you'll love the product though, and I think you'll want to stay along with it for the ride. But guys, thank you so much. I'm glad everybody loves the rebrand and the logo. I do too. AdiBustamanDesign.com knows his stuff. He's awesome. Really appreciate Adi's work on this, really helping us get sharp here on Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard on the Believe Network. Over 3,000 subscribers now on YouTube. Thanks to all of you for being there, for being subscribed, for being supportive of the channel, of the show, of the pods. I can't thank you enough. It's because of you guys that we have this community going and growing, and really excited about more things to come. I promised merch. Merch is coming, and I was waiting, to be honest, for the new logo. So now that the new logo is out, now that the new brand is out, we're going to get rolling with the merch for the NFL season. But thank you so much. Really have enjoyed this chat. We've gone 2 hours and 17 minutes here, and we have a couple more questions. I'll finish this up here. ZX says, how many fantasy leagues are you in this year, Pat? To be honest, Z, I used to do a couple draft leagues, and I really do enjoy draft leagues. I like auction leagues a lot. This league, I'm only doing daily fantasy at the moment, but I'm going to get into more gambling and gambling advice and gambling convos, and stay tuned for more of that because I'll have more picks every week. I'll be picking against spreads. I'll have games. I'll have fantasy advice coming your way. So there's a lot more coming here on Talkin Ball Live. I'm going to keep rolling out new stuff, new offerings, new information. I think you guys are really going to love. Dave Z says, have a great night, Pat. You're an absolute legend. So are you, Dave. Thank you for giving me an outlet to BS about the G-Men. You got it. Thanks for being here as always, Dave, one of the diehards. Franklin says, Pat, trying to be optimistic here. If the Giants start 2-0, unlikely I know, how would you see the rest of the season unfolding? In that scenario, do you think 8 wins could be possible? Yeah, I think 2-0 gets them to 7 probably. Like if they start 2-0, because listen, if they start 2-0 with a team that is still getting its legs under it, that is still like, kind of rounding into form, right? This is not a finished product. So if they start 2-0 against, other teams with lower expectations from the outside, then I think you can look at games against teams like the Commanders again, the Panthers, maybe the Saints, because they're coming here to New York. There's games like that where you could say, okay, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 4 wins. Now, of course, I've heard some people say they think it's an easy schedule. That's 5 wins, actually. I've heard people say that it's an easy schedule. I don't think it is. I mean, after the first 2 games, it's Cleveland, Dallas, Seattle, Cincinnati, Philly, Pittsburgh, right? And then after those 2 games in the bye, Bucks, Cowboys, Saints, Ravens, Falcons, Colts, Eagles. I mean, there's not a lot of breathing room for the Giants here, but I do think, if they beat those first 2 teams, it shows you that there's at least 5 wins on the schedule. And then if they pick off a couple teams here and there, could be an injured quarterback, could be the Giants exceeding expectations, then you're getting to that 7-8 area. Franklin says, what's your take on the first game against the Vikings? How do you expect it to go? Anything we should be mindful of? What's your score prediction? Franklin, we talked a little bit about that in this chat. If you go back and watch, not to blow off the question, but I'm going to get my hands more into this exact matchup, and either Wednesday or Thursday, I'll keep you guys updated. Wednesday or Thursday, we'll do another Talkin Ball live, and we'll get really knee deep into the exact breakdown of this matchup. But I did say I think stopping the run is important for the Giants in this game, and starting fast, getting an early lead so that Sam Darnold has to throw to catch up rather than can hand the ball to Aaron Jones. Stoudemire says, hey, Stoudemire, what's up? Great to see you. He says, Adoree Jackson is best suited as a boundary corner. He has good speed, height, and length to play against Justin Jefferson. Under Shane Bowen's system with a safety over the top would yield better results. Interesting point, Stoudemire. We'll see if that comes to pass. Really good breakdown there. Killer Cam likes that as well. Bob Hill says, love it, Pat. Thanks, Bob. Michael says, so what is the main reason why the Giants can be 4-13? Is it the quarterback? I think it's their inability to stay healthy. So I think that with their lack of depth, injuries usually rear their head for the Giants. I think the depth, as much as Daniel Jones can be shaky at times, I think losing him would mean the entire season going down the drain. I don't think they can afford to lose him at all there. Michael, I just think they have holes at some key spots. You see their desperation kind of at corner right now. Inside linebacker behind Okereke is a concern. Interior defensive line and run defense is a concern, outside of Dexter Lawrence, obviously. And then on offense, it's like a wait and see. JMS, is he going to round into form as the center? Is Nabers, even though he looks very promising, going to be able to help carry an offense as the key position player? A lot of question marks, a lot of hope so's, a lot of we'll sees. They have the potential. They have some players. They have some top end players. Can they put it all together, though? But thank you so much, everybody, for participating, for joining. Thanks for the super chatters, especially tonight. Tuto, Elias, Juicy Juice, Dope Dez. Really appreciate you guys chipping in and contributing. Great questions from everybody. Gabe, congrats on getting the trivia. You'll have a State 98 and Boom Chaga coming your way. Remember, the best way to support the channel is to get a bag of Boom Chaga. Try it out with that Talkin Ball 25 code on subscribe and save, or the QR code at boomchaga.com. More to come. I'll let you guys know on your social medias. Check me on X, PLeonardNYDN, and I'll be on Threads, PL and NFL, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I will give you guys a heads up whether we're going live Wednesday night, 9 p.m. or Thursday. I'm thinking it might be Wednesday in order to tell you, after 2 days of being in the locker room, what I'm hearing and seeing from the Giants in this Vikings matchup, and also so that we can all sit comfortably and watch that Thursday night football game. But I'll let you know. I'll give you a heads up. Thank you so much for being here. Stoudemire says, thanks, Pat. Always bring us the best New York Giants insight and content. Way to close us out there with a great point about Adoree Jackson there too, Stoudemire. Thank you, everybody. See you next time on Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard.